Members, we're about to put the recording on now. Okay, welcome everybody to the Policy and Resources Committee on Wednesday, the 9th of June, 2021. You're all welcome. First thing on the agenda is item 1, apologies. If I could have apologies, first of all, from Sinn Féin from Councillor Maguire.
Gormagat Howard, near Untitled Chapter, freshen, and the best of luck with the year ahead in your role as the chair of the PNR committee. One apology from the Sinn Féin grouping, Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly. Gormagat Howard, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tommy. Now the Ulster Unionist Party, Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies from the Ulster Unionist Party, Councillor Robert Irvine, Councillor Bert Wilson, and Councillor Alan Rainey has to leave early. Thank you, and good luck for tonight.
Okay, thanks, Victor. Thank you. And we're now on to the DUP, Councillor Paul Robinson. Any apologies? Paul, do we have you in at this stage? Anybody else from the DUP that wishes to relay apologies?
Chair, Councillor Thompson here. I'm not aware of any apologies.
Okay, that's fine. If you're aware of any later on, perhaps you'd intervene. Thank you. And SDLP, Councillor Mary Garrity. Any apologies?
Sorry, Chair, Councillor Coyle here. Councillor Garrity and Councillor Blake, apologies, please.
Thank you, John. And is there any apologies from single member parties or independents that we're aware of? I'm assuming by the lack of response that there's no apologies.
No apologies, Chair. No.
Okay, thank you. Right, that's apologies. We're on now to item 2 on the agenda, to sign the minutes and confidential minutes of previous meeting held on the 12th of May 2021. That has been done. So we'll actually now go on to item 3 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Have we any declarations of interest, please? I'm not seeing any declarations of interest, so we'll sorry, just hold on, members, please.
Chair, if I could.
Okay, go on ahead, Celine. You're not coming in, Celine.
If I could declare an interest in item 5.3, the consultation response to the energy strategy. I was a member of a working group in connection with a heat strand, and still am, that has been organised by the Department for Economy, where I was representing local government interests there. So it is just relevant. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Celine. Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. And good luck again for this year coming. I've just an apology. Sorry, I have a declaration there. Sorry, my apologies. In relation to 5.2, that relates to the Agricultural Wages Board, which I am now involved in campaigning against this abolition, so I can't be as part of my job. And secondly, in regard to 8.2 staff matters, there are issues there around the pay rates for the local authority staff. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Donald. No other declarations of interest that I see. Okay, we will move on now to matters arising, item 4. And if I could bring Alison in at this stage. Okay, folks, we'll go through the minutes of the last meeting. That's the Policy and Resources Committee, Wednesday, the 12th of May, 2021 at 7 p.m. And we're going through for matters arising. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6. I think, Alison, you wish to come in.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just at the bottom of page 6, there are 2 items in relation to the Western Health and Social Care Trust, Chair. The first item is in relation to the recruitment and retention of healthcare staff from Dr. Kilgannon, setting out the arrangements that they have put in place and the efforts that have been undertaken. And it's obviously in response to the Council's previous letter, Chair. So maybe we take that item first of all.
Councillor Deehan, you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and may I congratulate you on your appointment as Chair to Policy and Resources and wish you every good wish for the upcoming year. I want to thank Alison for her report, and I want to welcome this correspondence from Dr. Anne Kilgallen. In particular, I welcome news that the international recruitment campaign has been quite successful in recruiting both medical and nursing staff. And from her very detailed letter, Chair, it would seem to me that the Trust is going above and beyond the call of duty in welcoming the new staff members and making sure that their needs are met. And that would include providing them with temporary accommodation for up to 12 weeks and beyond to help them settle in. I note that some of these staff have been accommodated in the old nursing home in the Tyrone and Fermanagh hospital site, and that refurbishment has been carried out, but also that in the longer term, this accommodation would not be ideal, and that accommodation within the community is really ideal. So I want to welcome that. I know that this council has taken a very active interest in encouraging people, healthcare professionals, to accept employment with the Western Trust and in particular in the Southwest Acute Hospital. So I welcome that, and it's good news for the Council, and I want to propose the noting of the correspondence, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Josephine, and thank you for your kind remarks, and we'll take that as a proposal. Before I look a seconder, I'm looking to identify call-in user 2. Can call-in user 2 identify themselves, please?
Chair, it's myself, Chris Smith here.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Thank you. And the next speaker is Earl Thompson, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. And can I wish you all the very best in the year ahead as Chair of Policy and Resources Committee. The reason I was coming in, Chair, is that Paul Robinson is currently outside the Town Hall and trying to get in. So maybe that could be sorted out for him. Thank you.
We'll hopefully locate him, so I will. Thank you. And Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, I think it is important that we recognise the efforts that have certainly been made by the Western Health and Social Care Trust to attract professionals, medical professionals, to fill the absolutely perilous gaps that have potentially have had potential to open up. I think it has to be said that while there has been significant success undeniably in attracting applicants, there is an issue around retention, and there is also an issue around some of the services being restricted through one way or another. For example, I'm just considering the fact that neonatal has not been returned to 32 weeks or even 29. It's still at 34 weeks gestation, which means that the number, this is in SWA, which means that the number of babies that are needing to go to the neonatal is rather low, and I know that that means that has implications.
If I can just get across you, this is with regard to the item in question.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Are you prepared to second?
I am indeed, Chair. Yeah, I'll certainly second it. One issue I would say is there's also correspondence on item 9.8.2, which I believe may also reflect on this. So I'm wondering whether we should address that, because there is something that is related to that at this stage, or whether you want to leave that until it comes up.
I think we leave that till it comes up. It's pure notation of this. Thank you, Councillor O'Coffey. Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Well, obviously, just want to support this response in our last health meeting with the trust. Obviously, there was a lot of positives on the recruitment, and yes, unfortunately, there is some staff is retiring, but I think we're heading in the right direction of that, and the trust has worked very hard on it. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All in agreement? Okay, Councillor Coffey, could you take your hand down, please? Thank you. Now we move on to page 7.
Yes, Chair, and just at the bottom of page 7, correspondence from the Minister of Education in relation to the pathway funding. The Council had requested that this be mainstreamed to provide ongoing sustainability for the sector, and the Minister's response is detailed there, Chair, at item 4.2.
Okay, have we anybody to come in to note the correspondence? Councillor Erskine.
Noted, Chair. Thank you, and best wishes for your term ahead.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mark Buchanan.
I'm happy to second that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, is everybody in agreement? I see no dissenters. Passed. So we have then to go on to page 8 and page 9. Okay. The next item on the agenda is reports for decision. We start off with 5, the Chief Executive Directorate reports. And the first one of those is 5.1, Paper A, and that's to consider a report on the establishment of a Rural Affairs Subcommittee. Could I ask Alison to come in, please?
Thank you, Chair. So, Chair, just to summarise, members will recall we had discussion at last month's meeting in relation to the nominations to the subcommittee, and it was resolved that further legal advice be sought. So that has been sought, and the legal advice confirmed that the information provided to last month's meeting was correct. So in summary, nominations to subcommittees cannot be made by agreement and must be determined by the quota greatest remainder method, and the Council can choose to change the status of the group from a subcommittee without a call-in. So detailed at paragraph 2.2 in the report, Chair, are the options available to members. First is that we retain the designation of subcommittee for the Rural Affairs Group, and therefore we will seek 17 nominations by quota greatest remainder. Alternatively, it can be redesignated to a working or advisory group, and the composition by agreement, which was agreed at the April Policy and Resources Committee, would be retained. And then in terms of the Health and Social Care Advisory Group, we can either retain the current designation and therefore the existing membership will remain, or redesignate it as a subcommittee, and the 15 nominations will be sought by quota greatest remainder. So the report then details, Chair, that it is necessary to clarify if we will have 1 or 2 subcommittees, as the number of positions is important as it affects the numbers available. So we'll either have 32 positions by quota greatest remainder, or 17, or 15, and the indicative of all workings are identified in Appendix 1 to the report. And finally, Chair, at the April meeting it was agreed that we would meet in June, and it's proposed that the first meeting of the Rural Affairs Group would be 7 p.m. on the 24th of June.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Members, we had a major discussion on this matter at the last PNR meeting. So it was clarification that was sought, which is being brought before us tonight. So I don't really want a full discussion as we had 1 month ago, but obviously it's down for decision time. So first speaker is Josephine Deehan, Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Alison, our Chief Executive, for her very comprehensive report. And thanks to Alison and her team for working out all the committee allocations. Chair, you'll recall that when this matter came up last month, I had actually proposed that the Rural Affairs Subcommittee be redesignated as a working group. Now, I had already indicated that I would not be seeking a nomination for such a group, being a Noma Town councillor. My reason for making that proposal, which was deferred on the proposal of Councillor Green to get legal advice, my rationale for doing that, Chair, was really to ensure as much inclusion in that body as possible. And I know that many of our members feel so strongly, and rightly so, about issues relating to the rural parts of our district. So I recognise that and accept that. My understanding from the discussion at that time and following advice from our Chief Executive was that the main difference in terms of the operational and outworkings of a subcommittee versus a working or advisory group were very limited, but the main factor was really access to these meetings by the general public and the press, which of course is important. So what I would like to request before we go on, Chair, is that if Alison could just summarise again for the benefit of members the main differences between the status of these groups as subcommittees versus working groups. And if it was merely a matter of access to the press, surely we could find some way around that in terms of press releases and, of course, detailed reports back to full council, which should increase transparency. But certainly I feel very strongly about inclusion. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Alison, do you wish to comment at this stage?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in terms of the difference between the two, a subcommittee is a formal governance structure as recognised in standing orders and in the legislation, so it would operate entirely in accordance with our existing standing orders. So therefore, even in terms of duration, interventions, comments by members, access to the public and press would all apply to a subcommittee in the same way they would to a committee or council meeting. Similarly, if confidential or exempt matters were being discussed, it would be a requirement for a subcommittee to go into committee. There would be no delegated authority to the subcommittee, and the reports would come in the normal way through the Policy and Resources Committee meeting together with the minutes of the subcommittee. In terms of the existing arrangements for example, the Health and Social Care Advisory Group, as members are aware, all of those minutes are already reported through, and indeed there are also briefings and other events or activities arranged in conjunction with the Health and Social Care Advisory Group if, for example, the Trust would request a briefing to all 40 members as opposed to the 15 on the Group Chair. So I suppose in summary, the standing orders in their entirety would apply to subcommittees, and that would not be the case for working or advisory groups.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Next speaker is Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. I've been in communication with our legal representative. I don't think he's present tonight. It was a pity he hadn't. Now, when I was talking, he said that he went back to the original proposal, which was in November, which left 6 months was up when the subcommittee or group was being talked about. Apart from only for that, he said it would have been within the 6 months and couldn't have been changed. But my point to him was that on the 2nd of March, and I'll quote, Councillor O'Reilly proposed, this is his exact words, proposed, we do this here and now tonight, form a council committee because the need is so great. If we wait another 3 months, many other things will have happened. Now, 3 months later, that proposal was supported by the entire council that night. 3 months later, it still hasn't been done. But anyway, I'll move on. I'm proposing that we go with the subcommittee status. I believe it gives rural affairs a far greater emphasis, far greater clout in the council. I believe a group like the Agricultural Liaison Group, which I am a member of it, they may come a line or two through from it in the report, and that's basically all the talk that is about it. I think a subcommittee where the public, the press has access, what we're talking about, what's been proposed, and who's for and against is by far the best scenario. That was proposed back in November by myself. That's what was proposed in March when the council unanimously supported it, and I am proposing it again tonight.
That's fine.
That it's a 17 member subcommittee that we go with.
That's for rural affairs. And have you any comment
Yes.
with regard to the health and social care group?
None whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker on this is Councillor Anthony Feely.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and wish you best luck for your year ahead. I would hope it goes well.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll second Seamus' proposal.
Okay. Any other Councillor Warrington?
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm happy enough, obviously, with Agriculture, the Rural Affairs Committee.
Okay, we'll deal with that on its own, first of all, possibly is the best way rather than a lot of different proposals. So that's fine. Councillor O'Coffey, have you any different to the proposal?
I would just suggest that we should proceed to establish both as standing subcommittees formally. I would be happy to propose that both, or if Councillor Green was willing, I would certainly I would ask that he extend this. Given the fact that we run them concurrently, there will be 32 positions allocated, and having looked at that, I would consider that everyone, including independents, I would hope would be satisfied that they would have an opportunity to sit on one of these important committees. At the same time, the press would have access and public access and so on, and I think that's necessary. Finally, I just would like to raise a question to Alison. I know that the legislation commits the council to ensure public access, press access to committees and subcommittees. I wonder why can't we establish press and public access to all committees? Simply, I do understand it's mandatory when we have committees and subcommittees, but there's nothing to say that we can't provide press access to all of our meetings when we decide to. So why can't we as a council? Why do we have to do this?
Okay, Councillor Coffey, we're really dealing with those two committees, not the general point. I'm not sure here. Councillor Green, has been suggested there that both are subcommittees, and it's been asked by Councillor O'Coffey if you would agree to change your proposal. I'm not sure whether that's suitable. Councillor Green? Okay, we'll carry on. Councillor Green, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you clarify, can the Chief Executive clarify whether a subcommittee can be 17 or 32, and what has that any then ramifications in relation to if the health one is also a subcommittee, as in membership? Could I just get that clarification?
I actually think it's a good point, because there is differences between the two. So what I intend to do here, except we've anything to the contrary, is dealing with the Rural Affairs Committee, and that alone. We have the proposal from Councillor Green, seconded by Councillor Anthony Feely, that the subcommittee, it becomes a subcommittee for rural affairs with 17 members. Is everybody in agreement with that?
Chair, I'm not in agreement with that.
Any other dissenters from that? Councillor Warrington, your hand is up.
I'm not dissenting. I wanted to come back in on the other committee, please.
Okay, that's fine. So I'm taking that everybody is in agreement apart from Councillor Josephine Dean. Is that correct? Okay, well then that's passed. We'll deal now with the second issue, and that was a proposal from Councillor O'Coffey to grant subcommittee status to the Health and Social Care Group. Next speaker on that is Councillor Warrington.
Sorry, there was I also said that the allocation of positions should be conducted concurrently, so that in one go, so there will be a total of 32 positions. That's my proposal. Thank you.
I'll just bring Alison in on that, please, Donald.
Chair, it's just to clarify, if the council or if the committee determines they will both be subcommittees, then there will be 32 places dealt with concurrently. If, however, there is a decision that there's only one subcommittee, then that will be the only matter dealt with by quota greatest remainder.
Okay, are you satisfied with that, Councillor Coffey?
Yes, Chair, thank you.
Okay, the next speaker on this is Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify with Alison? We obviously the advisory committee with the trust has actually been working very well, and as it stands now, it identifies already at the moment. Am I right in saying as a subcommittee? And if that's so, I know there was an issue. Obviously, subcommittees are going to be open to the public and the press. But am I not right in saying that there was an issue with the press some time ago wanting to get in to cover those meetings, and there was an issue there? The only concern I would have would be that we obviously, the board comes down and they tell us a lot of, or the trust comes down and they tell us a lot of information. And is it a situation where if the meetings was more open to scrutiny from public, etc.? I know the meetings are reported and the minutes are brought forward to the relevant committees afterwards, but I'm just wondering if that would affect the meetings at the time. So if the Chief Executive could maybe clarify that, please. Thank you.
Okay, Chief Executive.
Chair, it would really be dependent upon the information that is being discussed. If the Health and Social Care Advisory Group becomes a subcommittee, then the same provisions in terms of confidential or exempt information will apply, and the group, if necessary, would go into committee for those matters to be discussed. Similarly, there would be other items that I imagine would be discussed routinely in open business, but it would very much depend on the agenda and the business in hand.
So am I right in assuming that the committee at the moment is not considered a subcommittee?
Oh, sorry, no, that's correct. It's not. The council actually has no subcommittees, so no, it's just it's an advisory group.
Well, I would like to propose then that is retained, that we leave the current health committee just an advisory committee. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McAleer. Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. No, and good luck for the year ahead.
Thank you very much.
I would actually take a contrary view to that, and as expressed by Councillor O'Coffey, I think both groups should be subcommittees to allow for the 32 councillors to select the group that they had previously agreed to sit on, and I think we need to respect that. There's two main issues at stake here. One of them is about representation on the relevant groups. As was alluded to at the start of you presenting this topic, the council has spent a lot of time talking about this. It's one of the rare times that there has been agreement on who should have access to it and who should do what, and that was all shored up. And as Councillor Green says, we thought months ago that there was agreement and movement on this, but unfortunately we're still arguing the detail of it. The second point being access to the public and to the press to report on these things, and I think we need to get clarity and clarification on that too, because I think it's only right and fair that, given the relevance to the public and given the importance of these matters, that the press should be given access, and that the public, if they wish, should be given access too. Just very brief, Chair, just to finish, just in relation to
you're seconding Councillor O'Coffey's proposal.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
But just very briefly in relation to the press access, journalists have access to reports, they have access to court hearings, they have access to proceedings where there is confidential material, and they can agree not to report on confidential material, or they can leave the room whilst confidential material is being reported. I don't think that is the issue here, but I think Councillor Warrington was talking there about transparency, openness, accountability. That's what we need to be promoting, and I think allowing the press in will ensure that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Baird.
Yes, thank you. I just come forward and second my colleague Councillor Warrington's proposal that the Health and Social Care Group be retain its current status as an advisory group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Curry. Siobhan. Sorry, Josephine Deehan.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I didn't realise you were in there first. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And I want to support Councillor Warrington's proposal. The reason being this, that I feel that our groups work very well when we have appointment to those groups by agreement. And, you know, I think that each political party will select members who have particular interest or expertise in this area. And Councillor Warrington is quite right. The Health and Social Care Group is working very well at present. Many of the issues which are raised by the Trust with this group are confidential matters relating to the operational issues of the hospital and staff recruitment. And yes, I think I understand that Alison has clarified that the subcommittee can go into confidential business, as we routinely do with our various other committees. But I think it is so important that elected members are given the opportunity of serving on these working groups. And I feel that we could develop our minutes better so that information is given to the press and to the public. We could issue press statements. We could enhance that. But really, it's about representation, and it affects all parties, not just single member parties and independents. And for that reason, I want to support Councillor Warrington's proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Curry, Siobhan.
Yes, Gormagada Cairley, and best of luck in your year ahead. Wish you well. Sure you'll do a great job. I'd just like to support, I believe it was Corlear Coffee's proposal there to go to a health subcommittee here. I think the media access and openness on a big issue like health, and just bearing in mind, Chair, that we recently met with the Pathfinder group, and how more of that is likely to be coming out to the community and voluntary sector, and therefore we will have probably a greater role as council. There may be some merit in actually maybe re-looking at the terms of reference at the group, but I would leave that to the committee. But just to come in to say that we support the subcommittee here.
Okay, thank you. It looks like we're going to a vote here. There's two separate opinions. So the first proposal was Councillor O'Coffey, seconded by Councillor McAleer, that the Health and Social Care Group becomes a full subcommittee. So that is the proposal that's on the table. So I'm going to go through now to each individual, and I'll first of all call on Councillor Diana Armstrong.
Against.
Councillor Baird.
Against.
Councillor Blake, I don't think is here. Councillor Mark Buchanan.
Against.
Councillor Glenn Campbell. Councillor Glenn Campbell. I'll come back to that. Councillor Sean Clark. Not present. Councillor John Coyle.
For.
Councillor Curry.
Evaber, for.
For. Councillor Josephine Deehan.
Against, Chair.
Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly. Apology. Councillor Sean Donnelly.
For.
4.
Yep.
Councillor Stephen Donnelly.
4, Chair.
Councillor Keith Elliott.
Against.
Councillor Deborah Erskine.
Against.
Okay. Councillor Anthony Feely.
For.
Councillor Anne-Marie Fitzgerald.
Above 4.
4. Councillor Adam Gannon.
4.
Councillor Mary Garty. Apology. Councillor Seamus Green.
4.
Councillor Robert Irvine, an apology. Councillor Eamon Keenan.
4.
Councillor Catherine Kelly.
4, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Padraigeen Kelly. Councillor Padraigeen Kelly. I'll come back to that. Councillor Tommy Maguire.
If ever 4.
Councillor Emmett McAleer.
4.
Councillor Chris McCaffrey.
Lahai, 4.
Councillor Stephen McCann.
4.
Councillor John McLaughlin.
Against.
Councillor Barry Michael Duff.
4, if over. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Gavin McPhillips.
4, Chair.
Councillor Donald O'Coffey.
4, Chair. 4.
Okay. Councillor Thomas O'Reilly.
4.
Okay. Councillor Alan Rainey.
Against.
Councillor Paul Robinson.
Against.
Councillor Chris Smith. Councillor Chris Smith. You still there, Chris?
Against, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Bernie Swift.
4.
Okay. Councillor Errol Thompson.
Against.
Councillor Howard Thornton. Against. Councillor Victor Warrington.
Against.
And Councillor Bert Wilson is not present. Was there someone else to go over there? Councillor Campbell. Oh, we have Councillor Campbell here.
4, Chairman.
4, thank you.
Sean Clark here, 4.
Sean, thank you very much. 4. And Councillor Padraigeen Kelly, I think, was the other one. Councillor Padraigeen Kelly. Okay, no response. So we'll just top that up and come back to you. The total there is 21 for and 13 against. So the proposal has passed. And I don't think we need to go into the other proposal.
No, that's carried now, Chair. So, Chair, that then means there are 32 places for allocation, which would be Table 1 into the first table on Appendix 1. So if I could just draw members' attention, that will mean overall there will be an allocation of 12 members for Sinn Féin, 7 members for the Ulster Unionists, 4 members for the Democratic Unionists, 4 members for the SDLP, 1 member from Cross Community Labour Alliance, Alternative, 1 for Councillor Keenan, 1 for Councillor Swift, 1 for Councillor McAleer, and 1 for Councillor Deehan. So we would proceed now, Chair, to take the nominations for the Rural Affairs Committee firstly through the nomination officers.
Okay, I'm not sure whether you're all in a position at this stage, but we'll try. Councillor Tommy Maguire, Sinn Féin.
Thank you, Chair. Indeed, I have 6 nominations for the Agricultural Subcommittee. Councillor Seamus Green, Councillor Anthony Feely, Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly, Councillor Siobhan Curry, Councillor Padraigeen Kelly, and Councillor Tomás O'Reilly.
Okay, and
you, Chair.
that's for the agricultural. Sorry, rural
Rural
affairs.
affairs.
Rural affairs.
Yes, agriculture, rural affairs.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry. And what about the other one? Are you in a position at this
I think,
stage?
Chair, we just take rural affairs
We'll
first.
take
We'll
rural
come back
affairs.
for
Okay,
health.
right. That's what I'm being advised here. Okay, then we're on to the Ulster Unionist Party. Councillor Warrington.
If my memory serves me right, the 4 members for the Rural Affairs Committee is Councillor Alan Rainey, Councillor John McCloughery, myself, and
Perhaps if you're unclear, you could confirm that by
I
email.
will. I had emailed them through. I will confirm them with the officers.
If it helps, Chair, it was me.
Yes,
Alex.
Councillor Alex Baird.
I'm sure
Thank
that
you,
doesn't
Councillor
help,
Baird.
but we have a name anyhow. Thank you. And
Thank
we're
you.
on now to SDLP. Sorry, DUP. Councillor
Chair,
Robinson.
can I come back with the names or email them to you?
Okay, can you come back to the Chief
When's the deadline?
Executive by email by Friday? Would that be okay, Alison?
Yes, certainly, Chair. That's fine.
Right on.
I think we did previously have Councillor Robinson and Councillor Buchanan.
And yeah.
Okay,
That's
but if
fine.
you could confirm that by email.
I'll confirm that
please.
again.
Okay, thank you. And SDLP, Councillor Coyle.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'd like to nominate myself and Councillor Garvin McPhillips for the Rural Subcommittee, Rural Affairs
Rural Affairs,
Subcommittee.
yeah.
And I can get the nominating officer to email the Chief Executive if that's needed.
If that could be done by close of play on Friday, please, John.
Okay, so then, Chair, we proceed to 3.
Councillor Robinson, I think you're trying to get in, but you're muted.
Yeah, thanks,
Do you wish
Chair.
to come back on that, please?
I nominate Mark Buchanan on myself.
Okay, thank you. That's the clarification. Sorry, Alison, could you carry on there, please?
Okay, so now, Chair, we have the 3 picks in terms of the single member parties and independents. So the first pick would go to Councillor Keenan. So we would just need to confirm if it's the Rural Affairs Subcommittee.
Councillor Keenan, can you respond, please?
Yeah, I'll go on the Rural Affairs, yeah.
Okay, you're happy enough, thank you.
The second pick then, Chair, would be to Councillor Swift.
Gurmagat, yes, I choose the health, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. And then the next pick would be Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair and Chief Executive. I'd like to sit on the Rural Affairs Subcommittee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McAleer.
We would then go, Chair, to Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chief Executive. I would like to sit on the Health and Social Care Subcommittee. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Deehan.
Okay, we still have 1 position, Chair, in Rural Affairs. So we will go to just to seek the next pick would be then, sorry, Councillor O'Coffey. But I'm just conscious, Chair, we need to look at the impact just on health, if I may, for a moment. So, okay, so the next pick would be to Councillor O'Coffey then, Chair.
Councillor O'Coffey, your
So
choice.
well, if I'm picking one, I'd go for the Health Committee, obviously. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor O'Coffey.
Chair, can I clarify just in terms of the breakdown, how many of the independent smaller parties go on one or the other of those committees? Because there's, I think, an odd number, isn't there? So just to
yes, that's what we're just
what the split
checking
is.
back on, Chair. So I think that would be our full allocation now in terms of the healthcare from the smaller.
Sorry, Alison, you're not coming through. Sorry, members, we're just checking through this. This is quite complicated. We'll be
sorry,
back shortly.
Chair. Just to confirm, we can only accommodate 2 members on the 2 independent members on health. So that'll be Councillor Swift and Councillor Deehan. We will have 6 members from Sinn Féin, 3 from the Ulster Unionists, 2 each from the DUP and SDLP, and then Councillor Swift and Councillor Deehan in that order. So Councillor O'Coffey's decision is whether he would like to participate on the rural affairs.
Okay, Councillor O'Coffey, that's clarity now.
I'm happy to pass down to someone else. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
So we would then go, Chair, to Councillor Stephen Donnelly.
Councillor Stephen Donnelly.
So this is for a position on the Rural Affairs Subcommittee.
That's
correct.
I'd be happy enough to accept, please.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Donnelly.
Sorry, Chair, can I interject there? Just a thought. I don't know where the additional nomination has come, but I thought the original nomination was Councillor Swift, Deehan and O'Coffey were on the Health Committee.
No,
and
sorry, Chair,
myself.
I can clarify. No,
Hold on, we just clarify that. Hold on,
you
Alison.
see,
Yes.
Chair, once we proceed to the quota greatest remainder, so there are 3 independent or single member party places on the rural affairs, and we do those in order of picks. So Councillor Keenan has picked in rural affairs, that's one place. Councillor Swift has gone to health. You, Councillor McAleer, have gone to rural affairs. Councillor Deehan has gone to health. Councillor O'Coffey has passed over, and Councillor Stephen Donnelly has gone for rural. So that will conclude the independent. In fact, that concludes all the nominations to the Rural Affairs Chair. So we would proceed now to the remaining nominations for the Health and Social Care Advisory Group, and that will just be back to the parties. So there
Can I
will
have some clarity on something, please, Chair?
Yes, I know that Councillor Curry has had her hand up for some time.
Sorry, okay.
I'll bring her in first.
Excuse me, that's an error.
Okay, right, no problem. And Councillor McAleer, we've heard from. So Councillor Warrington, you have a point of clarity.
Just wanted to check. Obviously, I'm on the Rural Affairs Committee now, but is it okay, obviously, to double up then onto the Health Committee, because something that I'm fairly passionate about. So is it okay, obviously, for somebody like myself to double up onto it on both committees?
I think that's a party nomination, and that's entirely up to the party, but I'll clarify that with Alison.
Thank you.
Yes, Chair, that's correct. So we will be going back now through the parties. If would you like me just to summarise, Chair, the membership of the Rural Affairs?
Yes, please.
Okay, so from Sinn Féin, Councillors Green, Feely, Anne-Marie Donnelly, Curry, Podrigan Kelly and Thomas O'Reilly. From the Ulster Unionists, Councillors Rainey, McCloughery, Warrington and Baird. From the Democratic Unionists, Councillors Robinson and Buchanan. And from the SDLP, Councillors Coyle and McPhillips. And then we have Councillors Keenan, McAleer and Stephen Donnelly. So that concludes the Rural Affairs Subcommittee, Chair.
Okay, so I take it that everybody is happy with that. We'll move on now to the health and to the party nominations.
So from Sinn Féin then, Chair, we will have 6 nominations to the Health and Social Care Subcommittee, please.
Councillor Maguire, are you in a position to fulfil those?
Yes, indeed, Chair. Happy enough.
Carry on, please, Thomas.
Councillor Stephen McCann, Councillor Barry Michael Duff, myself, Councillor Tommy Maguire, Councillor Chris McCaffrey, Councillor Glenn Campbell, and Councillor Anne-Marie Fitzgerald. Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We now move on to Councillor Warrington on behalf of Ulster Unions Party.
Yes,
Yes,
Chair,
Chair,
so
thank you.
3 positions for the Ulster Unionists.
Thank you. Councillor Deanna Armstrong, Councillor Chris Smith, and myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we'll now move on to the SDLP. Councillor Coyle.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I nominate myself and Councillor Adam Gannon to sit on the health group, and I'll get Mary to clarify by email. Thank you.
If you could do that by Friday, if that's possible, John, please. And then we move on to DUP. Have we confirmation there?
Yes, we have. I nominate Councillor Eskren and Councillor Thompson. And I wish you all the best in your chair for the coming year. Chairman.
Okay, well, at least I got you in tonight, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And,
Okay, so I think that's all. Do we want to now just clarify the names
yes.
there with
Okay,
independence?
and then that will be those members. The party nominations will then be joined by Councillor Swift and Councillor Deehan, and that concludes the nominations, Chair.
Okay, members, that's that item dealt with. We're now on to 5.2. To consider draft response to the consultation of the proposal to revoke the Agricultural Wages Board and founding legislation. There are several consultations here, and some of them are very in-depth. So I'd ask that members, when they do get the opportunity, keep their spiels to a minimum. Margaret, I think, is taking on this lead. Margaret?
Thank you, Chair. The first one, as you say, is the draft response to the proposal to revoke the Agricultural Wages Order, which effectively then removes the Agricultural Wages Board. The draft response is attached as Appendix 1. The Council's draft response expresses concerns in relation to the potential abolition of the Agricultural Wages Board, with particular regard to the resultant negative impact on farm businesses and those employed within the sector. Chair, if members are content, we've also had a little bit more information coming our way that we'd like to include, and just in summary, some of it actually it's all in support of what we've written, but just in summary, we'd like to include comment in relation to further comment in relation to the exploitation of agricultural field workers in relation to modern day slavery. And we have a couple of examples, one from 2015, where 16 people were being rescued from a farm in South Armagh, and these included men and women aged between 18 and 45, and a separate investigation in Belfast around the same time resulted in 5 people being rescued. We'd also like just to highlight that without the guarantee of overtime, there would be no guarantee of overtime rates for workers employed for 39 hours or more. And also, in terms of the cost of the saving measure for the board, the savings would be about £23,000 per year, £23,000 per year, but half of which is a nominal cost of a full-time admin person. And this is the lowest cost of any public body in Northern Ireland. The Agricultural Wages Board is the last collective bargaining body covering the private sector in Northern Ireland. And this is a particularly difficult area of employment to legislate for, because it's small scale and it's difficult to collectively organise workers. And then finally, to make a further comment on the Equality Impact Assessment, because it concludes that the proposed change to the legislation may have an adverse impact on age and racial group. And yes, we can recognise that, but what we would argue would be that it's clearly going to have a particularly adverse impact on minority communities through the migrant workers and young people. The impact on young people, where the wage differential between the Agricultural Wages Board rates and national minimum wage rates is the largest, and that will provide a disincentive for potential new entrants to a sector which is desperate for new entrants and suffering labour shortages. And half of the figures from 2019 show that almost half of all agricultural farm workers are not categorised as paid, but other, which indicates the prevalence of informal working in the sector, largely based on young people from existing farm families. So, in summary, Chair, we're sorry, I've lost my tab. In summary, Chair, I would recommend that councillors accept the proposals within the draft consultation. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. You're quite right. Councillor McAleer, you're the first to speak here.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks very much, Margaret, for that report. I think there's as you've said there, even in that fairly brief summary, there's a lot of very important matters covered, and I would be very supportive of them. Being mindful of the examples question, and obviously there was another furore down south in relation to the importation of workers for picking fruit. So no, I'm very happy to support and propose the support of this. I think the idea that half of agri workers aren't even getting a wage is quite disturbing in this day and age. So no, very happy to support that, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McAleer. Next speaker is Eamon.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd be happy to second it. Yeah, any move towards away the exploitation of workers is definitely a positive one.
Okay, thank you. And the next speaker, Councillor Anthony Feely.
Sorry, Howard, I hit the wrong button. Yeah, I'll be brief because I know you have a big meeting here, a lot of stuff's going on. No, I just want to be supportive of this as well and thank Margaret for the hard work she put in there. Anytime you hear the word slave being mentioned isn't a very good night. It's hard to believe that there's still people willing to do that and treat people like that. So it's good that we're going to try and get away from that, and it's desperate carry on for people to be at to exploiting migrant people coming over looking for work. And I know it wouldn't be an easy thing to do to keep an eye on people working on farms. There's a lot of farms are family run, and they wouldn't be employing many people only for that big scale. And people just coming on farms working with contractors and stuff, young fellas driving tractors and that like it's very dangerous kind of work they're at too. So I'm just glad that we are looking after them, and I'm just want to thank Mark for that work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Feely. Councillor Coyle.
Thank you. No, I support the consultation going back. This here Agriculture Wage Board, the department can't, we should be fighting this to keep it in state, because the agricultural workers need it for protection for themselves. A lot of farmers work more than 39 hours a week, so and it's a dangerous occupation, so we need to do everything to safeguard people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that's the last of the speakers. So I'm taking that everyone is in favour of accepting this report as the recommendation. Any dissenters to this? Okay, I'm taking that is a unanimous decision to pass that. We move on now to item 5.3, and that is to consider draft response to the consultation on policy options for the new energy strategy in Northern Ireland, and that is outlined as paper C. Again, I think it's Margaret we'll ask to come in on that subject, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is the response, as you say, to the policy options for the new energy strategy. The consultation concentrates on 5 key themes, and we have provided commentary on each of the 5 themes to keep the 5 key themes. We've also had discussions and attended workshops with several key stakeholders, including Sustainable NI, National Energy and National Energy Action. In the response, we take the opportunity to restate our opposition to shale gas exploration and extraction by the process of hydraulic fracturing, otherwise known as fracking, and welcome the fact that there's no consideration given to encouraging the use of such energy sources within the strategy, and interpret such an approach as being entirely consistent with the Council's policy decision. Just some of the issues that we have outlined in the appendix to this report include the lack of budgets being attributed to any part or all of the strategy, the emphasis being placed on hydrogen and gas networks as opposed to the newly developing carbon-free energy sources, the lack of safeguards in place to protect rural dwellers from being further disadvantaged when compared, with those who live in more urban areas, the fact that the Fermanagh and Omagh district has historically been left behind in the development of energy infrastructure, meaning that we're continuously playing catch up and this can't continue to happen going forward, and the affordability of new technology and energy sources, and particularly will these be available to everyone, including those who are already living in or close to fuel poverty. So the recommendation, Chair, is that the Council approves the draft response to public consultation on the policy options for the energy strategy for Northern Ireland.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. First speaker, Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to start off by saying it's an excellent response. It makes a lot of very good points, in particular those that have already been elucidated by Margaret in regard to fracking and other matters. There's one or two things I was trying to get time to submit them ahead, but I failed, I'm afraid. There's a reference there to the inadequacy of public transport and the I think we should make a reference to the need for rail as a medium term, if not shorter objective, rail connections into our council area, considering the potential for these to lead to significant reduction in private transport reliance. Also, the hubs, which I think are an essential if we're going to try and ensure local civil service workers can actually work closer to home. I also would like to see on the top of page 7 something around the repurposing of production in a just transition. We have a lot of industries which, for various reasons, either cannot or should not continue into the future, and there's a huge amount of skills there. And what we need to see is action, interventionist policy from both Stormont and Westminster to repurpose production along more sustainable lines. And I think that we should reference the need for that to be a just transition involving representation of workers in that process and empowerment of workers, in fact. I also note that there's inadequate, I think we need to just reference the inadequacy of public transport as a limiting factor on transition away from private transport. I recognize the issues around hydrogen that's mentioned. I do think it's absolutely crazy, as the report says, that we're bringing natural gas in at the very moment. London's looking to get rid of natural gas by 2025. And finally, just I think we should talk a little bit about biogas as a renewable, sustainable form of power, and that should obviously be associated with retention measures to prevent pollution. So I'm happy to propose on the basis of those additional changes. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, the next one to speak is Councillor Curry. Siobhan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Margaret. It's a great report and very forthright, very good. I also have some things, though, that I would like to see included. Just at the bottom of the introductory section, last paragraph, where we talk, and rightly so, around fracking, but could we also insert a paragraph in there that Fermanagh and Omagh District Council, as members of the nuclear-free local authorities, are opposed to any energy strategy that might include nuclear power, either in the form of new nuclear or on imported energy from nuclear. I think that's our position as members. I have quite a bit here, actually, and might go over my time, and apologies to Margaret because I was working on this just up until the meeting. Is there any, if I could ask, Chair, is there any way that we can submit anything after this?
The problem would be that it needs to come to committee for approval.
Okay.
Margaret, I'll ask for your comment here.
Would it be possible that committee could agree the principle of Councillor Curry's comments, and then we can add the detail in to the response? Would that be acceptable?
Well, it's very hard to know, except we get some idea from Councillor Curry. Councillor Curry, can you be explicit, please?
I'll do my best to rush through it, Chair. I'm just thinking about time.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about time as well, but carry on.
Just under the general overview as well, I think just there could be another paragraph inserted there, second paragraph maybe, that we acknowledge progress on decarbonising electricity. That's been remarkable, but from most consumers' perspective, despite the fact that coal-fired power stations are gradually being replaced by wind turbines, not much has changed. So it's just to recognise that heating and transport is going to be very different, and there's an urgent need there to understand local geography, in particular rural areas in that. And then further on down, there's a paragraph that starts, it's also noted that the guidance should potentially go further, and that's a really good point, to take in greenhouse gases, because the Committee on Climate Change has modelled, actually they're calling for 35% reduction, but have modelled 45% reduction, and that's actually very conservative too, given the fact that we have abundant renewable energy sources such as wind and tidal, and just when we're going to be demanding so much from agriculture, we could really make changes here. What we do here will be very important to make up that and to decrease the pressure there. Can I continue, Chair?
Well, basically, you know, if that is the main themes, I mean, transport's already been included.
Yeah.
I mean, so there is a duplication to some degree, but I mean,
I think
over
they're
to
also,
Margaret, are you happy enough that the main themes and the slight tweaks that are being requested? Margaret?
Sorry, Chair. Chair, I can take any comments that councillors wish to make, because we're still in time to get the response through to the Department for Economy.
Okay. Well, I mean, Councillor O'Coffey, you've made the original proposal with a couple of interventions. Are you happy to that we keep the same proposal with your interventions and Councillor Curry's themes that she's discussed?
Yes, Chair, I'm happy, entirely happy with that. Thanks.
And again, Councillor Curry, you're quite happy to second Councillor O'Coffey if those interventions are forwarded and they're on the themes that have been discussed before committee. All right?
yes, I'm happy. I do have some additional though, just Chair, and that's the
Well,
issue.
please, Siobhan, be very quick, because it really needs to come before committee.
Yeah,
in
and
themes.
I don't mean to push you, Chair. I really appreciate the position you're in. Just the emphasis also on All Ireland cooperation. It's not there. Just before theme 1, I would say, to put that in. And Margaret has made mention of the sustainability, but just that better policy relationships with CCAE should be developed, and the work should continue on an all-Ireland basis in managing the Irish single electricity market.
Okay. I take it that's as much time as I can really give you
That's
here.
okay, and I really appreciate it, Chair, and apologies for pushing you there. It's
Okay.
just quite a bit there,
Okay,
and thank you, Margaret.
Okay, Councillor Anthony Feely.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I know all that has been proposed and second, but I was going to propose or second them changes that Siobhan was making there, but I know it's been done now. But no, okay. I just like to welcome a few things too. That, well, just to comment more, to make a comment about some of the good work that the Sinn Féin MLAs is doing in Stormont at the minute on this kind of work. I know there's an odd councillor here hitting out that the MLAs is doing not me done a Stormont, but some of our
I don't think we've time for that.
It's only brief. It's about the expansion of the affordable warm scheme, and that's going to help cost energy bills. You know, and that's coming in. I think the first of July is coming in. And that's going to be got new heating systems and window replacement, which will help the environment as well. I just wanted to make that comment, but I'll not hold you up any longer. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Keenan.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Well, I was just going to come in with basically Siobhan mentioned at the end there, a more all-Ireland collaboration approach.
Okay.
But such a small island, there'll be duplication of maybe processes at various stages. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I just wanted to make a point. Basically, we've hit these minutes or agendas from with this one from last Friday, and I think, to be fair to the officers who have sat down and prepared these consultations and reports, if we wanted to make major changes to them, it would only have been fair to have been a bit more prepared and had the stuff through to them instead of leaving it to the last minute tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Warrington, and we have now Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's obvious that the previous councillor doesn't do any other work apart from his council role that he's so
Sorry,
well
just
prepared
keep
and
away
has
from
provided.
that. We're on the topic here in
And
question.
thank you, Chair. Yeah, no, appreciate that. Quite happy to support the recommendations that have been made here. I think just in relation to the all island element of it, we need to, I suppose, still be mindful of the relationship between Sony and EirGrid and that overarching dynamic that's really behind the energy or electricity generation on the island. And I think as well, just the fact that it could be argued that we actually have sufficient electricity provision as things stand, and that the majority of electricity being provided or produced in excess of that is to power big tech companies and data centers, north and south, who maybe aren't paying their fair share of taxes. So I think there's a few elements such as that we need to be mindful of, but I think we need to support those notions brought forward so far.
Okay, first, before I put this to the vote, Margaret, are you happy with what you've heard here, that you can draw up a few tweaks to accommodate that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so, I mean, we have it proposed, Councillor Coffey and seconded by Councillor Curry. Is everybody in agreement? Any dissenters? Okay, that's passed. Again, please, with such big documents, if you could provide the officers the detail in advance of the meetings, because it's so limited as to what we can do in meetings. But thank you for that. We'll now move on to 5.4, to consider draft response to the consultation on the protect duty. That's paper D. Again, Margaret, if you come in that, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members, I'm sorry, we do have quite a number of consultations tonight, but it's to try and fit in with closing dates. So this one's about the protect duty, which is a Home Office consultation, which they're bringing forward following consideration of the terrorist attack at the Manchester Arena in 2017. And it's about how we could try and make public areas safer going forward. It has the potential to impact, however, on our area, and we could be required to adhere to the legislation in leisure centres, arts centres, parks, town centres, etc. And it sets out a number of questions. So I suppose in summary, there are reservations on the breadth of proposals made. Perhaps we should be looking at guidance rather than imposing a duty. The national threat level in Northern Ireland is different than in the remainder of the UK. Local authority mechanisms are different in Northern Ireland, which made it a little bit difficult to complete the annex. There are no local resilience forums in Northern Ireland, and the Civil Contingencies Act does not apply in full. We've also expressed concerns in relation to who the new enforcement body would be for this function. And the commencement of new regulations within a post-COVID environment could be problematic. Funding and resources would need to be provided, as would the development of competence of any officers designated to implement and enforce this duty. In Northern Ireland, only the PSNI conduct any formal awareness raising and education in relation to counter-terrorism activities. Sorry, excuse me. And it would be difficult for local authorities to take on any additional enforcement role in this duty. We would also need a defined lead-in time for the implementation of the final iteration of the duty. Communication with local authorities at the earliest opportunity is essential, so that we're clear about expectations, roles and responsibilities and enforcement requirements, and importantly, ensure that any adequate and sustainable funding is also realised. So it's recommended that elected members approve the attached consultation response on the protect duty for submission to the Home Office. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. First speaker, Councillor Keenan.
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree that a lot of it isn't relevant to the north of Ireland, and our security situation will be a lot different. I suppose things that has happened previously in the likes of Manchester would be more to do with goings on in the Middle East and the British involvement there. But on the face of it, it looks like a knee-jerk reaction to a terrorist, anti-terrorist threat. but also possibly, you know, more likely a chance to restrict some certain freedoms or rights. And as an expense, we don't need it. I don't think it's relevant. So yeah, probably a fair enough.
So are you
enough
proposing?
Answers. Yeah.
You are proposing, okay. Councillor Coffey?
Yeah,
Councillor
thank you,
Coffey?
Chair. Sorry, I lost you there. Yeah, it's just there was a number of issues in here which are very undefined, really. I think the point really is that the responsibilities for this are being placed upon local authorities, and whereas local authorities in Britain are much larger entities and with a greater capacity to take on some of these roles, as far as I know, they actually have a role in policing in a way that we don't. This is not very applicable to us in many regards. The other thing is it's quite undefined what's being required in terms of measures put in place to spot and disrupt hostile reconnaissance and work to ensure security behaviors are adopted by workforces. Now, I don't know what that means, and it's very unclear what these so-called mitigations mean in practice and whether workers would be satisfied with them, whether it means how do you know if somebody's engaging in reconnaissance? You know, there's a lot of unknowns, and I do certainly fear in many regards rights are being eroded rapidly at the moment in many regards, and I hope that they recover. But at all times, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance, isn't it, Chair? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Bacalier.
Yeah, I think it's that very point that Councillor O'Coffey makes in relation to the restriction of rights and workers' rights, and obviously with other bills being introduced by Westminster, the clampdown on the right to protest, the on trade unions groups, on environmental groups, it does seem like it's more and more a deprivation or erosion of rights that this Tory government are after. I would be very concerned with what their overarching aims are, and I think it's a good response from the council in that a lot of it, as has been said, doesn't strictly apply to us.
Okay, are you happy to second then?
That it's not relevant to us, but that we don't do the good work of Margaret and her team. So happy enough to support the response, Chair.
So, sorry, I didn't ask Councillor O'Coffey. Were you happy to second, first of all?
I was, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay, the next speaker we have. No, that's the end of speakers. So we have proposed by Councillor Keane and seconded by Councillor O'Coffey, that we accept the recommendation in the report. Any dissenters from that? Okay, that's passed. The next item on the agenda is 5.5, to consider a draft response to the consultation on the draft Flood Risk Management Plan 2021 to 2027. That's paper E. Again, I think per Margaret, you're back on again.
Sorry, poor you have to listen to me again.
No problem.
Paper E, yes, is the draft consultation response to the draft NI Flood Risk Management Plan. And DFI is the competent authority for the preparation of this plan. And this is a second cycle of flood risk management planning under the Floods Directive. It sets out the objectives and measures for managing the second 6-year cycle, primarily focusing on areas of potential significant flood risk in Northern Ireland. Excuse me. Changes since the first cycle Floods Directive work include improvements to flooding data sets, technological advances in flood risk mapping and assessment, inclusion of climate change analysis for the medium probability scenario, and a greater emphasis on the environment and cultural heritage, in addition to flood damages and human health. It sets out how flood risk management is carried out and builds on the objectives under the headings of prevention, protection, and preparedness. There are 45 flood risk areas identified in the Northern Ireland Flood Risk Assessment, which took place in 2018. And OMA met the threshold for classification as an area of potential significant flood risk. There's 12 of these areas across Northern Ireland, and OMA's ranked 9th. And so once you become an APSFR, there's a requirement on DFI to produce flood hazard and risk maps and flood risk management plans. Chapter 5 of the plan includes a specific section. OMA is covered in pages 192 to 208, and this presents the findings of the assessment and plan measures over the 6-year period. The plan recognises the importance of working relationships already in existence through the civil contingencies multi-agency preparedness structures, of which Council is a member, and also references the importance of linkages with Council's local development plan. And just to note that on page 8 of our response, Council recognises that the multi-agency partnership working already in place to respond to and mitigate against flooding across the district, and is committed to continuing our involvement in this partnership. It's important to acknowledge that whilst outside the general remit of the plan, the district has the unique challenges of fluvial risk in Omagh and lake-based flooding in Fermanagh. So it's recommended that elected members approve the draft consultation response on the draft NI Flood Risk Management Plan 2021 to 27 for submission to the Department for Infrastructure. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. First speaker, we have Councillor Deehan.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Margaret, for your very comprehensive draft consultation response. I think, Chair, you will agree that this Council owes a great debt of gratitude to Margaret and her team for the excellent consultation responses which she and her team produce, showing a great deal of expertise in so many different areas. And in terms of the draft flood risk management plan, this is no exception. This is an excellent consultation response, and I support it entirely and would propose it. I want to make one proposal regarding maybe strengthening the report, and I would refer members to page 5. And this in this page, the report said that the Council would offer continued support for further feasibility work on the flood alleviation scheme for Omagh. I would like that strengthened to indicate that urgent action is required to implement urgently preferred solutions which have previously been identified but not implemented owing to lack of funding. The funding issue has been referenced later in the report, but members will be aware that Omagh has a history of significant flooding with great distress to its residents over the past 60 years and more. We have had up to 12 major flooding incidents. We can all remember, I'm sure, Storm Ciara in February 2020, when the Drumragh River and others were in full flood, and also in 2015 when we had many bridges in Omagh town, including the Abbey Bridge, closed to traffic because they were at risk of being swept away. Now, some decades ago, there were major flood alleviation schemes planned, including the realignment of the River Strull as it passes between the Lissanelli and St. Lucia's site. And very, very sadly, that plan was abandoned. And in fact, it is currently planned to put playing fields in the floodplain of the Strull River at that point. Chair, we need urgent action. Yes, we have excellent work done by our community resilient groups, but we need to prevent flooding.
Accept, and you would need to draw your comments to a close, please.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Chair. And I apologise, but I'm really passionate on this issue, and I would appreciate it greatly if Council would agree to Margaret and her team strengthening up that response. March 2027 is much too late. We need funding in Omagh, and we need those flood alleviation schemes now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Deehan. Next speaker is Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, I'm happy to second Councillor Deehan's proposal. What I would just wanted to highlight was on page 6. It's interesting that the current guidance under the flood management plan will potentially remove exceptions to building in zone land or building or zoning land which may be susceptible to flooding. So the current exceptions that are in the SPPS document are explicitly excluded in the current guidance, and it is something that I wish to welcome, because I think it's far too often that we're seeing development in the floodplains, especially with the fact that 1 in 100 year floodplain is now increasingly a 1 in 10 year. So very happy to support Councillor Deehan's changes as well. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Coffey. Councillor Swift.
Yeah, Guramagat Kirlock, and thanks, Margaret, for the significant report on all of this. And yes, I know naturally people are thinking Bernice is now going to talk about Bow, and I can't stop talking about it because we are still outstanding on lots of matters and issues that I suppose all departments in Stormont are responsible for. I don't hold anyone responsible. And we had a recent meeting on many of the issues for us. And I suppose, Margaret, I would state here the fact that there is much mention of the drainage plan and local drainage plans, etc. And I know the whole legislation around the various different responsibilities here. But once again, and if this can be included for mention, it would be greatly appreciated. The fact that it has that it's still outstanding. The Fermanagh Flooding Task Force report, the review of flooding, again, must be done in consultation with everybody impacted. There must be an immediate review of that report, because a way back when it was released, and I just refer to page 49 of that flooding task force, it stated that that task force notes that Fermanagh is part of the Northwestern River Basin District, and a flood risk management plan will be developed for the entire RBD. And as this is also one of the 2 international RBDs, this work will involve cross-border coordination. Well, we all know that naturally anyway. But it was envisaged at the time that a sub-plan would be developed for Fermanagh in the longer term, but no plans were ever presented, and therefore actions were still not implemented. So, you know, that's still outstanding and must be addressed with immediate effect. And similar to Councillor Deehan in highlighting the issues in Omagh, flooding happens in Bow 6 to 7 times per year, and every time there's rainfall, not even heavy rainfall, flooding happens in Bow. And again, the community representatives in that area feel very strongly that there has been negligence from the accountable departments, along with all of the political institutions who have forever, it must be said, turned a blind eye to addressing the problem, to implement and invest proper solutions for the Bow area. And much of the above are not new ideas that we had already mentioned in the flooding task force. It was suggested as far back as 60 years ago, because I presented the detail myself. And again, you know, talking about farm diversification for the area in our recent meeting that was chaired by the then Vice Chair, Councillor John Coyle, you know.
Sorry to interrupt, Bernice, but you're coming to the end of your 3 minutes, and I want you to really highlight in a sentence really what more you want into this consultation, please.
Right. Now you've popped me off my track, so I'll need to read back. An immediate review of the flooding task force report, as was stated at the recent meeting, and again, all the issues that were raised at the recent meeting needs to be included in this. It's fundamental going forward for this area. We have been told about being resilient.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut you off here.
Well, that's extremely rude, Howard, I must admit.
Well, I'm sorry, but we all have three.
Lots of other people have been allowed a lot of leniency, and this happened last night with the UUP too. Unforgivable. Goodbye.
Bernice. Okay, thank you. Councillor Anthony Feely.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for letting me in. I'm coming in. Firstly, I want to thank Margaret and her team. They've done good work on it. Good work. I know there's not a wee bit to be done, but they've done very good work, and as well as all the other consultations. Any time there comes rain or heavy rain, my phone starts ringing with constituents mine from Derrygonney and Bow, about flooding. And I know a lot of farmers up there, we chat to them on a weekly basis about the market there, and the farmers chat with the weather and what goes on, and serious amount of flooding done up there to them men, especially the summer flooding where a lot of their sailors after grass were flooded there about 2 years ago. So I think there want to be a big emphasis on the fact that it is having on our farmers up there, like, and I know, and not just the farmers, the people living in the houses up there, the people going to school and all that. So I just like to get as much about the farming on it and the fact that it's doing them. But thank Margaret for the work she's done and for the good work that my colleague there has done. And I see she has a hand up, Councillor Siobhan Curry, about sods. And
Okay.
I was going to mention that, but I'll let Siobhan talk about that. But just the fact it has on the farmers and the community, that's I just wanted to get that point across, Howard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Philly. Councillor Kerry.
Yeah, Gormagad Cairley, it's not actually to speak, it's just I think I should probably declare an interest here as the representative just on the Drainage Council. It's not explicitly mentioned. We've yet to meet, but I think I should just declare that interest, Gormagad.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kerry. Councillor Coyle.
Thanks, Chair. No, fully support what Councillor Swift was asking to be put in. It is important. At the time, the Agriculture Minister had accepted, a way forward for the people in Bow, but the funding never materialised, and that needs to be reviewed because it is happening. It's happening every time, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a year, like in the Bow area, and they are being very resilient, but the people need to be consulted and the plan needs to be updated. Thank you.
John, I fully agree, and it's just I'm working to the time constraints. I fully appreciate what you're saying and what Bernice has said. Thank you. Next one is Councillor Emma McAleer.
Thank you, Chair, and yeah, I just hope that Bernice got her full points across there. But really, just to welcome, there's one particular line in the appendix that jumps out at me, and I think it's something that we should be practicing right across the board. It's that the LDPs should apply a precautionary approach to development, and I think that has to be welcomed going forward. So supportive of the other comments noted. Okay, thank you, Councillor McAleer. Councillor McElduff.
Thank you, Chair, and I wish you well in the year ahead. And I'm going to be brief. 2 points I would like added in relation to OMA. Perhaps some focus on the Derry Road area of OMA, including Hunter's Crescent. There has been a lot of flooding in that area in recent years that caused great inconvenience to residents. Also, whenever Campsie is referred to in the document, maybe also to add in, Lower Market Street, Campsie and Lower Market Street. And finally, Chair, I wonder could we also make reference to a proposed joint project between the Department for Infrastructure and the Department of Education in relation to strengthening flood alleviation measures at the Struhl Shared Education Campus. I think these were mooted already, but found to be...
Sorry, Barry, is this in the consultation?
Well, I think it's...
Or is this separate?
It's additional, it's us proposing additional measures in OMA, if you know what I mean.
I can understand that, but it's not for the consultation, is that correct?
I thought this was looking for our input.
Sorry, I'll just check with Alison here, please. Hold on. I'll just ask Alison to comment on that. Sorry, Barry.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And I think maybe Councillor Deehan had also made reference to this. So my understanding, Councillor, is that those proposals regarding the joint project between the Department for Infrastructure and the Department of Education have been ruled out. And that is because the timescales for the development of the campus and the timescales to allow particularly the environmental considerations and the planning processes associated with the flood alleviation works and the realignment of the River Struhl, the two works programmes won't align. So in other words, it was an original proposal, but it has now been ruled out by the Department for Education and the Department for Infrastructure as it's not going to be deliverable.
I think it's not going to be feasible or economically viable. Typically, I would expect that from a government department, but it was my impression that we make the case, we advocate for the needs of our community, but I do take the Chief Executive's point. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McElduff. Margaret, can I just ask, have you got a note of all the comments that were made? That's with regard to Councillor Deehan, O'Coffey, Swift, Councillor Coyle and Councillor McElduff and Councillor Feely.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Are you happy to take those on board, Margaret?
Yes, if councillors are in agreement.
Okay, that's lovely. Right, so with regard to it, the original proposer was Councillor Deehan and seconded by Councillor O'Coffey. Are you happy that all those additions which were suggested by all those councillors are also added in some shape or description to the overall return?
Yes, Chair.
Yes,
Thank you.
Chair. Yes, Chair.
Okay, so I'll put it to the vote. I take it everybody is happy that we are providing those extra details. Margaret is going to tune it up accordingly. Any dissenters to that? Okay, it's passed. Thank you. And now let Margaret take a little break, I think. We're on now to agenda item 6, Corporate Services and Government's Directorate Reports. And the first one of these, 6.1, and I'll bring in Celine. And before I do so on 6.1, I want to thank Celine for the excellent workshop we had on Monday and the input from Stephen Kitchen with regard to, he was the Treasury Advisor talking about reserve accounts. And I understand, Celine, you have put that on decision time and it's available for all councillors if they couldn't attend that meeting, but it was an excellent presentation and thank you for that. So 6.1, to consider report and draft financial position for the year ended 31st of March 2020, paper F, please.
Thank you, Chair. And Chair, members, this provides, as you said, the draft financial position based on our management accounts for the 12 months to the 31st of March 2021. And really, at the risk of repeating myself, whilst the Council's financial affairs can be complex enough in a normal year, certainly the impact of COVID, positive and negative in financial terms, is very significant in these figures. I want to take a couple of minutes just to run down through some of the most important variances that are contributing to the overall financial performance of the Council for the year. And then the further financial management actions that we're proposing to take. Those are summarised there really starting at paragraph 2.4 on your report. So we have had a reduction in income against what was originally budgeted of 3,450,000. We have made overall savings in staff costs of just over £1 million. Some of that is due to vacant posts and the timing of posts, filling of posts during the year. Some of it is a reduction of variable staff costs that are related to income. Some of it is a reduction in other general staff costs, for example, where buildings weren't open and where there have been less overtime costs. There are also some increase in staff costs in particular service areas such as waste, and under other frontline services where we needed additional staff, and then there is early retirement costs there of a total of 300,000 that was approved during the year. There is, in addition to that, then a sum of 832,000 of COVID-related costs and expenditure that has been incurred by the Council during the year. And those would relate to the community hub operation, the significant grants programme that was offered in terms of COVID relief, costs in relation to PPE for staff, for signage, public notices, advertising, communication, IT costs, and the range of additional expenditure that was incurred there. We've also had then savings and underspends in operating costs in a number of areas. Those have been in utility costs, in travel and expenses, in administration costs, and also then in some areas of direct service costs. That has in part been as a result of savings, but also in some areas because of reduced or deferred service delivery, and we need to be mindful of that in terms of our forward planning as well. On the positive side, we did receive some additional grants from our normal grant streams. We received an additional 60,000 of derating grant and 726,000 of additional monies from the rate support grant. The latter amount there was because of an additional sum that was put into the rate support grant and notified to councils. Unfortunately, as I've mentioned previously to members, it would appear that the reverse situation is the case with the Department for Communities, who are the funding there for this year, funder for this year, whereby they have reduced the overall sum available, and therefore we have an under sum in the current year, which does have to be addressed. Our rates income exceeded the original projections in the rate space by an amount of 844,000, which is again very good, but the cautionary note there that obviously there could be additional write-offs and or appeals in connection with that. So it may be a year to 2 years before the full outworkings of our rate space currently are seen in terms of our income. Members will be aware that during the year there was a number of sources of additional funding, exceptional one-off funding that was made available to councils. Firstly and most significantly from our sponsoring department, the Department for Communities, and that was related to loss of income and closure of services, and again some contributions towards the exceptional COVID expenditure. So in that area we received 2,893,000 of additional funding for 2021, and then a sum of 2,134,000 which is related to the current year and future years, with a particular focus again on uncertainties around the rate space and how that might evolve over the COVID recovery period. A sum of 3,294 was received again from the Department for Communities in relation to the Emergency Financial Scheme, which does contribute towards communication costs and emergency planning costs. Further funding was received in relation to community support activities from the Department for Communities, and that was an amount of 688,000 and certainly goes some way to offset the additional COVID expenditure there. And then we have also received a net sum in the region of 800,000 from the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs in connection with additional waste management costs. The council was eligible to apply to the HMRC furlough fund for staff in staff costs and staff who were employed in areas where facilities were closed and there was a significant loss of income. And over the course of the year, and that evolved from full furlough into flexible furlough, and obviously the change in situation with different lockdown periods. But the total there that has been received by the council last year was just over £1 million. And finally, then there was additional money that was received then from the DFC, DFI, and DERA in connection with revitalisation schemes, which is related to our economic development programmes and our economic development service. And in total, that was 1,287,000, of which some then was allocated to spend in 2021. So overall, that is a positive. I suppose there's more positive than negatives there, but a very different picture from what we envisaged at the start of the year, and when the original estimate position was put in front of members, and equally different again probably from the revised budget that was approved in year. Another area of important work that the council does is investment in our facilities and in the facilities across the district. During 2021, the capital expenditure that the council was able to progress was a figure of 10,396,000, which compares well with the overall budget of 10,725,000. Albeit that there might be some things, some variances and differences within that. It is equally good that that a very significant proportion of that has been externally funded, because that means that though that capital investment has been delivered at little or no cost to our ratepayers. And again, in some areas there could be elements of match funding. But as you can see in the report there, 7.7 million of that has been externally funded, and this does reflect the strategy of the council and to try and maximise capital funding from external sources and bring that into the district for investment. Other aspects of that expenditure then is funded from our reserves, and there are a number of transfers there, as well as then a sum of 1.1 million from the revenue position for the year. Over the course of the year, then, a number of transfers were approved previously by the Policy and Resources Committee, again where underspends had been identified or particular issues presented. In 2020-21, mindful that when we were completing the financial results and figures for the 1920 year, we were aware at that stage obviously of the COVID situation, and we were working through it, and that it was at that point that we established a COVID reserve to try and help us manage and balance the fluctuations around around all of these ups and downs, and really to try and avoid what would be described as a boom and bust situation for the council. So we have continued to try and then fund that COVID reserve, the contingency and resilience reserve that we have that we set up last year, and that is what we propose to do with the additional sums that have been generated this year, either through the exceptional funding or through underspends and other savings that have been made. And the additional sums to be transferred there due to the outturn position that I've explained to you are detailed at 2.9. So those entail a transfer of 1,560,000 to the COVID Contingency and Resilience Reserve, a transfer to the Capital Fund of 1,780,000, which is in excess of the original estimates figure, transfer to the Repairs and Renewals Fund of 650,000, and that is the fund that does cover ongoing significant repair costs, for example, around car parks, around community centres, pitches and general facilities. And you can see up above that we do also take monies out of that fund each year as well. A transfer of 250,000 to the transformation and also to support climate change initiatives and actions, and then a transfer of 200,000 to the Economic Development Reserve, representing underspends really in respect of the growth deal, which we know is starting to build momentum and will incur further costs, and also in relation to the local development plan, further work that has to be done there. So again, to stress, members, that these reserves help us to manage timing differences between when the income is there and when we are able to spend it. Some of it does relate to underspends in delivery. Some of it does relate to efficiencies that have been generated, and then additional income sums that have been made available to us this year. But it is very much in agreement with what the Council has already approved, to use our reserves and try to manage our financial affairs in that more balanced way. The final sums then is that that we then are working with is the 2,134,000 of COVID support, which has been specifically notified as being advance funding for the 21-22 year, so it's not something we can take account of in 2021. When all of those adjustments are made, then that would mean that the Council is reporting an overall surplus against budget of 272,000, but that is still a draft position, because we will make any further adjustments that emerge over the next few weeks, right up until the accounts are finalised, which will be at the 30th of September, and when they will have been subject to full audit as well. The next item of this report then, whilst all of that information is really based on our, I suppose I would describe it as our cash figures and very much related to the estimates and performance against the estimates, there are a number of technical adjustments that have to then be made in order to comply with the accounting requirements that are applicable not just to the council but other organisations and businesses and all manner of organisations. So they relate primarily to accounting for retirement benefits and in our case accounting for closure and aftercare costs on landfill sites, both existing and historical, and also the valuation of property and how that is done. So we do take professional advice to inform these adjustments, and that does result then in a number of non-cash adjustments, which then will be reflected in the full annual statement of accounts that are presented for the council. The process as we move forward now is that the draft accounts are required to be submitted to the Department for Communities as our sponsoring body and also the Northern Ireland Audit Office before the end of this month, the 30th of June. And then there's a period of 2 to 3 months when the Audit Office will be engaged with us in auditing those figures, and then the final published accounts, the legislative requirement is that they are published by the 30th of September 2021. And obviously, if there's any update on any of these issues, then we will bring that to members' attention. The recommendation set out at section 8 on page 5 of the report then is to note the financial position as presented for the year ended 31st of March, to approve the transfers to the COVID contingency and resilience reserve, the capital fund, the repairs and renewals and other reserves, including the economic development reserves, to note the reliance on the third-party advisors and expertise in relation to those additional technical accounting issues, and then to proceed, authorise officers to proceed to finalise the unaudited statement of accounts for signature by the Chief Financial Officer, which is Alison, our Chief Executive, and also then the chair of this panel, Councillor Thornton, for submission then to the Department for Communities and the Northern Ireland Audit Office on or before the 30th of June 2021.
Okay, thank you, Celine. I know that you have given a lot of opportunity for questions to be asked prior to the meeting tonight. So, and also there's opportunity on Monday. So I'm hoping that we haven't that many questions and we can progress. First, the speaker is Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Celine and your team. Done a great job, and it's very positive to see that we've made a 5 million saving from where we started at the start of the year. 21 million in reserves, and now 26, and we're putting a couple of million away for a rainy day. When we look back to the discussion on the rates, it was costing 1.5 million to increase the rates, a cost of 1.5. Now we're in a position where actually 5 million under budget and we underspends, and with the last year that we've had and the reduction in services to the ratepayers, I would like to make a proposal that we actually give a rates rebate back on the value of the hike, the rates hike. And I'll be hoping to get support from all members, especially Sinn Féin, as Conor Murphy, their finance minister at the time, did say that there should be no rates hikes. So yeah, that's my proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Keenan. Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Well, obviously, Celine's report has been very complex, and anybody who listened to the presentation during the week would also realise how complex all our finances are. And I think it's obviously sterling work. In view of what Councillor Keenan said, well, certainly our party will not be supporting that proposal to give a rates rebate. At the end of the day, the council have some very ambitious capital spends in the future with the Ardone, with the Forum, and with other areas in OMA. So with that, I would like to propose the recommendations on the report given by Celine. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Councillor Edmund McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure you know where I'm going. I would like to second Councillor Keenan's proposal. We spoke on the night of the rates that we felt that we had residents hadn't really been able to avail of all council facilities given the last year. They've been through a lot of hardships, personal sacrifices have had to be made. And really, I think we owe it to them to now we're sitting in such a healthy financial position, even more healthy than we were looking at earlier in the year, that we should be returning some of that money. And I will be very happy to second Councillor Keenan's proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair, and I would like to thank Celine for her very comprehensive report and for taking us through it step by step by step. And also to thank Celine and her team for the finance workshop, which we had earlier this week, which really explained in great detail the complexities of the Council's financial position. And I think the fact that we do enjoy a position of relative security at this point attests to the skill and the wisdom of our finance team under the leadership of Celine and the Chief Executive. And I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to her. The COVID pandemic could not have been imagined, and the demands that it made on the Council. And I think the Council as a corporate body responded very positively to those challenges, including the challenge of managing our finances. So we do enjoy a position of relative security, but we're not home and dry, Chair. We hope that the COVID pandemic will be subsiding, but we can't be sure because of the emergence of various virulent variants. So we have to be cautious going forward, and we have to continue to deliver our services to the highest standard and at the same time deliver on our capital projects. I think it's very much to the credit of our financial team that we have been able to get so much grant funding for our capital projects, and that attests to the ingenuity and also to the fact that the Council was really very wise in progressing these projects, which were funded to such a large degree. So I am happy to second the adoption of this report, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would just have to say, I think it is a testament that we have such a strong position. Our usable reserves having gone up from 21 million to 26 million. It is eminently obvious, I believe, that we can bring forward a rate rebate while making no cuts. And I think that is something that I would certainly support. I note that the last time that this was raised, it was ruled incompetent. And I've spoken before about incompetent rather than not being competent. But I think it's very clear to see that it is entirely possible that we could, as a one-off gesture in this most terrible year, for where people are really struggling to actually, and they couldn't access council services, this could be something that we could really do to give back to the ratepayers this year. So I'm very supportive of that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. As somebody who voted for a zero rates increase at the time, I think this proposal sounds like a bit of a gimmick, to be honest. I would suspect, and I'd like advice from the Chief Executive of what the average increase was at the time. It would have been the time to do a 0% increase, but time has passed. It happened. It shouldn't have happened, but it happened. But I suspect that it actually costs more now to do it than the actual saving by the time we go through every household. find out whatever 5, 6, 3, £4 that the refund would be. I expected the council cost the council even more than the actually gained on the increase. Could I have a comment on that, maybe from Celine or the Chief Executive?
I'll ask Celine or the Chief Executive the wish to come in at that point.
Okay, Chair, certainly to comment initially, as members will be aware, the rates and the policy associated with it and rebates and other matters are a priority of the Department of Finance. So it's not something that the Council can routinely issue rebates on. It was something that was referenced previously, and I also think that what was gone through at length at the rate setting meeting was the Council's own commitments that you had set out, the areas that you had clarified that you did not wish to have any potential deviations from service or service standards, or indeed in terms of future projects or capital investments. So I noted the last day, Chair, that when the comment was made around the terminology used, I'm satisfied that the terminology used on the evening was correct. I note that only a partial summary of what was proposed at the rates meeting has been presented before members this evening, but certainly it is my understanding that the Council is not technically in a position to offer rates rebates.
Okay, Councillor Green. Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it didn't really answer my question about whether it would actually cost more than the rates rise was to actually administer to go through all of that and offer rates rebate. I think that possibly by the time it would be a complicated thing and possibly end up costing the council more than we actually raised on it. I would presume now, when the money has been gathered in, that if we actually put it to good use back into the community in another way, it would be better than going through a procedure of going through every individual rate case and refund of the council.
Okay, Councillor Green.
Sorry, Chair, maybe just to clarify, sorry, Councillor Green, the reason, it's obviously a hypothetical question, it's something we can't do. So therefore we couldn't calculate the cost of doing something we can't technically do.
Councillor
Maybe if it's useful, I have access to just some of the information that was considered at that time, and the 1.37% increase that overall in rates that in the district rate would resulted in an average increase of £5.68 per year for each householder in the district. And I suppose the member is correct that there would be an administrative cost to that in terms of any approach, which again, as the Chief Executive said, I'm not sure that that could be administered at this stage, given that rates bills have now been issued, and that it would be within the remit of the Land and Property Service through the Department of Finance. The other thing, I suppose, which again may be relative and not of concern to members, but again we look to compare ourselves across Northern Ireland. Out of the 11 councils, we were the 5th lowest, so that means that there was a good 6 councils who set rates at a higher rate, and we were certainly below the average in terms of that as well. So in terms of the disadvantage to our householders in that, relatively speaking, we have the rates increase is not significant.
Okay, Councillor Bird.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think the Chief Executive and Celine have explained that it's just not possible for us to do that. So in the legal terms that are used, then I presume the proposal is either not competent or incompetent. But from the point of view of the ratepayers, surely what we can do is, when we come to the end of this financial year, that we look to be in a reasonably prudent position then that can be taken into account when setting the rates for the subsequent year. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'll come back now to the original proposer, Councillor Keenan. You've heard the impossible situation that you have proposed, which is, I will watch my language here, is not competent to actually carry it out with the budget of Councillor
Yes,
O'Coffey.
well, I understand, but I also understand that when the previous proposals put forward at the time of the rate hike, it was also ruled as not competent, and our finances now would tell a different story. But given the challenges that you have and the legalities that so-called stand at the minute, possibly we could put something in writing for the next rates hike for this to be factored in as a reduction.
Sorry, I'm not sure exactly what you're saying here. Your proposal as it stands tonight is not competent.
Yeah.
Are you willing to withdraw that? Because I don't believe it's competent.
No, I'm not willing to withdraw it. No, rule it incompetent.
Okay, I will rule it not competent in what the advice we have had from the Chief Executive and the Director. So the other proposal is from Councillor Warrington, seconded by Councillor Deehan, that we approve the recommendations of the report as outlined. Can we see whether there's any dissent to accepting the recommendations?
Yes, dissent, yeah.
Dissent, okay. Councillor Keenan, anybody else?
Dissent.
Yeah, Councillor McAleer as well.
Councillor McAleer and Councillor O'Coffey, anybody else? Otherwise, it's passed. Thank you. We now move on to 6.2 to consider an annual governance statement for Fermanagh District Council for year ended 31st of March 2021, paper G. And Celine.
Yes, Chair, members, this is another important part of the Council's annual consideration of its affairs and will be published as part of our annual statement and financial report later in the year. Normally this would have been considered by the audit panel in advance, but the timing of the meetings and how they have worked out, the audit panel actually meets tomorrow morning, but that's reflected in the recommendation. So the annual governance statement really provides information on how the council is run, and then it focuses in particular on significant governance issues that have been identified, and then we report on how we are trying to address those. It does follow a number of headings that are laid out in a pro forma that is set out by the Department for Communities for the Council, and those 18 headings are listed at 2.3, and then those 18 headings then are in bold in the actual governance statement, which is at Appendix 1. And then there's commentary on the Council's arrangements then under each of those headings. I want to take you through then to the, paragraph 2.7 of the overall report, which does then outline what we consider to be the significant governance issues which presented to the Council. So the first one is around, I suppose, the work of the emergency plan and the emergency management team, which has been operational throughout 2021 in connection with the pandemic situation. And as we're aware and has been subject to much discussion, lots of implications there, be they operational, financial, going concern, and all of the action that has been taken to deal with that. The second issue that has been highlighted then is the inaccurate information that was published in relation to the Council's agreed position as part of the consultation on schedule of proposed changes in the Local Development Plan 2030 draft plan strategy. It was investigated and a series of recommendations made. We're also aware there were data breaches in connection with that incident, and those have been reported to the Information Commissioner's Office and again have been subject to investigation. The work to address all of these issues is ongoing and will continue into 21-22, and a further report will be brought both to Council and indeed will be required to be published as part of this and future governance statements. The final area again, and despite the relative security as member has described it just there recently, it remains our position, our considered position, that there is a lot of financial uncertainty there still in the environment and in the economy, both the public sector environment and indeed around areas where we would again have generated income, and that certainly hasn't recovered yet. But also, I mean, really the rate space is very much an unknown quantity for us going forward. So I suppose all of this corresponds and ties up. The action that we're taking there is to establish and to try and manage our reserves to absorb those fluctuations and ensure that we do manage the council effectively from a financial perspective. So the recommendations in relation to the governance statement is that the council does approve the governance statement, which is in draft, and any further issues that emerge or need to be considered can be added to that right up to publication. But this is the statement that forms the basis of our initial submission to the Audit Office and to the Department for Communities, and hopefully will form the basis of our published financial statements in September. So we're asking the Council to approve this draft governance statement, subject to any amendments proposed by the Audit Panel in their discussion, and then authorises the Chair of the Policy and Resources Committee to sign the governance statement on your behalf.
Okay, that's the recommendations before you. Have anybody to propose and second? Councillor Deacon, you're happy to propose?
Yes, I am, Chair, and thank you, Celine, for a very comprehensive report. And I think it covers many of the issues that arose during the year. And I'm happy to propose the acceptance of this report, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deacon. Councillor Warrington, are you quite happy to second?
Happy to second, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I haven't heard any dissent, so I assume that that is unanimous passed. Okay, we'll move on to the next issue, which is 6.3, to consider update report on procurement and tenders, paper H.
Chair, members, the first thing that I would draw your attention to is that the format of this report has changed slightly, and that is to correspond with the focus on aspects for decision making and then aspects for information. So we have prioritised and put up front the issues for decision making. A lot of our procurement activity does operate under delegated authority whenever the sum is approved. However, again, as a control mechanism where the pre-tender sum is exceeded, we do take it back to you for approval. So the items listed at 2.1 is 3 tenders which have exceeded the original pre-tender estimate and therefore are here for your approval. Really, I suppose, with the exception of the last one, the first two was that the brief was extended from what was originally estimated. So the actual tender that went out was asking for more work to be done than was originally intended. And again, both of those projects do benefit from significant external funding, which would contribute to those additional costs. The third one we really have to attribute to just some complexities of the project itself and ensuring that it's done in a safe and environmentally friendly way. But we feel that it is within, it reflects the market price. It's still an economically advantageous sum, and again, we would seek your approval. As a general comment, I would flag to members that we are aware of increasing costs in a number of construction areas, and indeed it was highlighted to me today that the price of steel has increased by, maybe in the region of 100% on over the last number of months. So it is likely that we will get these fluctuations. We do try to be prudent and sensible in our estimates, but I just feel the climate at the moment is such that costs may fluctuate a bit, and it does seem to go in cycles in that respect, but that's just a general comment. The other items for approval are listed at 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4, contract extension, approval to tender for provision of waste collection of tyres and rims, and a single tender action in connection with IT security services. Moving on to section 3 then, there is information on again 3 tenders which have been awarded and were within the pre-tender estimates and are for your information. Finally, just drawing attention, I know that members and indeed officers do get inquiries from suppliers about working with the council, and we are providing, or we're working towards a supplier engagement event on the 28th of September, which we would then hope to do both a general session and one-to-one for sessions with suppliers locally who wish to engage with us and try and support and advise them. The recommendations then at 9.1 for approval as detailed A to F, and then noting the additional tenders awarded and the virtual supplier engagement event.
Okay, thank you, Celine. Councillor Warrington.
Yeah, well, I just want to obviously support what Selena said there on the cost of steel, certainly, and builders' products generally has gone through the roof. I was actually speaking to an individual the other day who's in the steelworks, and as Celine said, the cost of material has doubled in the last couple of months. So on that, I certainly am happy to propose the recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Robinson.
I second the recommendations.
Okay, members, you've heard it proposed and second. We accept the recommendations. All in agreement? No dissent? Okay, passed. We're now moving on to reports which are really information reports. And we start off with 7, the Chief Executive Directorate reports. 7.1, to consider report on Rural Needs Annual Monitoring Report 2021, paper I. Chief Executive. Sorry, Margaret.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is the Rural Needs Annual Monitoring Report for 2020-2021.
Sorry, Margaret, could you speak up a little, please?
Sorry, Chair. This is the Rural Needs Annual Monitoring Report for 2020-2021. And basically it follows quite a strict template which is set down by DARA. So you'll notice there's a difference in the tenses because we literally have to take out the text of the Rural Needs Impact Assessment, which was agreed at a point in time. These assessments have all previously been agreed through committee. So it's just to let you know that we will be sending this monitoring report through to DARA. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Margaret, for the report. I'd just like to propose noting.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Robinson.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Members, you've heard it proposed and seconded. Anybody dissent from those? Okay, it's passed. We now have 7.2 to consider report and procedure for dealing with responses to consultations. That's paper J. And again, it's Margaret. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Yeah, this was on the back of a request from PNR in May that we look at how we actually bring consultations forward through committee in the future. And basically it sets out a number of key issues, and particularly in 2.3. We have got problems since the New Decade New Approach came in, when they reduced the consultation period from 12 weeks to 8 weeks. Sometimes it's 6 and rarely, but sometimes you get 2 to 3 weeks. You know, we have issues in terms of the timing of when they come in and trying to get them through committee agenda timeframes. You know, there's a number of important strategies that we will definitely be wanting to look at, which will really potentially be released for consultation in July with a closing date at the end of September, which sounds a long time, but it actually is going to cause us some problems. We don't have a coherent system for the notification of consultation responses. They go to various different parts of the council and sometimes don't come in at all. When we require guidance on whether we should respond to a consultation, we will always let members know. Protocol says that for a consultation response to be drafted, at least 9 members should respond to the email, with a view of the majority being taken. For example, if 9 members respond and 5 members indicate their support, then the consultation response will be drafted and presented to committee. I would say that we over the years, we sort of know the ones that will definitely be requiring a response, such as the ones that came tonight, such as the anti-poverty strategy, disability strategy. Sometimes we're not sure, so we will follow that particular part of the protocol.
Okay, is that it, Margaret?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. So it's just to let you know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. Councillor McElduff,
Just to
you were one of the
propose.
people that raised this.
Yeah, thanks, Howard. Thanks, Chair. Just to propose the adoption of the recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor O'Coffey?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second this, but I have to say the content is genuinely concerning, and I think it does exemplify the way in which the Stormont executive is purposefully closing down the opportunity for engagement from the community via consultations. The idea that we're moving away from having longer consultation periods where people may be able to get more detailed responses in, where there's time to go around and speak to your community or to affected stakeholders. The fact that now we're, in some cases, we're seeing, especially with the COVID, a requirement for a turnaround in as little as 24 to 48 hours on some key issues, and there's a degree of understandable with some of this, but no way should this become normal, and it is becoming normal. So I'm very happy that we've identified that in our response. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Donald, you're happy to second the proposal, the recommendation?
I was, yeah.
Okay. Councillor McAleer, want to brief
Thanks,
the
Chair. I'll
committee,
be brief on
please?
that. It's just to pick up on that point that was raised in relation to the volume and frequency with which these consultations are coming at us, and again the turnaround time that's being allocated in order to us to draw up a response. And you've seen the agenda we had tonight, and the volume and depth and research and work that goes into drawing up these reports to bring the council to sign off on. It's no easy task, and I don't envy the staff that have to do it. But there are, and it's identified again within the report, the number of important ones that are going to be done. And it is worrying, and it's questionable the way it seems to be constantly done at holiday time or coming up to a holiday time where they're going in July for the end of September. Previously, we have addressed with certain departments responses or consultations being done over the Christmas period. It's not one single department that does this. It is something that needs to be addressed and needs to be confronted. So I'm happy to see that that is something that is highlighted as part of this, Chair.
Okay, thank you. You've heard it proposed and seconded that we accept the recommendation. All in agreement? Any dissenters? Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is number 8, Corporate Services and Government's Directorate Reports. 8.1 is to consider a report of the Director of Corporate Service and Governments, Paper K. Celine?
Chair, members, really 2 items in this report. An update on the Council's work, direct customer services work is detailed at item 2.1. And a bit of a flavour there of the adjustments that have been made over the course of the last year and how that service has continued over the course of the year. And some information there just that may be of interest to members around the, I suppose, 82,000 phone calls during the year, and then the additional sort of 12,000 inquiries in person, email, and then the web chat that we introduced during the year. So that's really just for information, and thought that it'd be useful to bring that really once a year to you, just to give you a flavour of that. The second item then is just really around awareness raising, and this is relevant to staff, to our public, our people across the district, and also to councillors. Just the fact that cybersecurity and scamming incidents are very routine now. Our organisation in the public sector is high risk because we are constantly under attack on a daily basis. We have cybersecurity systems in place. We have some very well trained and very dedicated staff who work on this as well. But it's really just to raise awareness, because you can have all the technical systems in place, but unfortunately if someone clicks on the wrong thing, that can breach firstly their own information, and then it can be a route into the organisation's information. So your attention is drawn to that information. And the recommendations there are just for noting the update report on the Council's customer services for the year April to March 2021, and then the information on cybersecurity.
Thank you, Celine. And Councillor McElduff.
Yes, Chair, thank you. Just to ask Celine, how is the Connect Centre or the Connect Centres, how are they succeeding, notwithstanding COVID, in relation to visitor information queries? The visitor information service. And secondly, it still amazes me that people don't know what the nature of the building is at 16 High Street, Omagh. Even though it's facing out onto the street, might be corporate colours, but if I explain to some people that that's a shop front for the council for a number of services, number of queries, they don't tend to know that. So external signage and just making it even more clear that what it is, that people don't have to go up Lissanelli Avenue, on foot to avail of some services. I think it's a real issue, because I met someone at the door of it recently, and I explained what the building was, and the person in question was a recent past councillor. A recent past councillor didn't know that 16 High Street is the shop front for the council at High Street, Omagh. I can't comment, obviously the chair and other Enniskillen town councillors can comment on the Enniskillen arrangement, but I do think there needs to be signage, real clear, stating its purpose, no fluffy words, as somebody said today, just stating its purpose, say it as it is on the tin. Thank you, Chair.
Hey, are you happy to propose noting of the report that's before us along with your additional comments?
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Erskine.
Chair, just coming in to second there, and to thank the staff for all the queries that they've had to deal with during what has been an unprecedented time, and working from home and all of that as well, Chair. So yes, happy to second there.
Thank you, Councillor Erskine. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair, and wishing you well in your term. I know that you'll be an excellent chair based on previous experience. It's just following on from what Councillor McElduff raised there, and I am in support of what he's saying. I do feel there's probably, speaking from an Enniskillen point of view, in the back of people's minds, maybe the building isn't associated sufficiently well with being the Connect Centre. And I'm actually thinking, when we talked about consultations last night, that perhaps some on-street activity promoting, inviting people in. I mean, I'm a great advocate for bringing people into our council buildings. The town hall is the people's building, and the Grange the people's building. But to go in actively, and my question would be, when we do public consultations, would those spaces be used, and could we actively use our marketing team on the streets to say, this is what we're doing today, we want you to come in, we want your views? And I think that there will embed those two buildings in our two major towns as belonging to the council and belonging to the people, for the people's expressions of their points of view. So thank you, Councillor McElduff. I support what you're saying, and also support the excellent work having been done by the teams there during lockdown. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Before I ask for Celine's remark to that, Councillor McAleer, have you some other comment?
Yeah, just very briefly to pay tribute to the staff, and I think the figure there of almost 87,000 phone calls received by the council between April 2020 and March 21. The volume of phone calls that have been taken there, I would have liked to have seen some of the staff involved on the Green Road public right-of-way representation, when 12 phone calls I think was going to take us 2 weeks to make. So no, welcome the report and welcome the impact or the input of the staff.
Okay, Celine, do you wish to make any comment? We have.
Yes, I just reply on a couple of those points. Councillor McElduff had inquired about our Visitors Information Centre, and just, I suppose, on point of clarity there, in Enniskillen, our Visitor Information Centre is through the Enniskillen Museum, and in Omagh, it's actually as part of the Strual Arts Centre. In normal times. However, during the course of the year, and I think it's mentioned in the report, that there was a joined up approach there between the staff and the services, you know, for various different reasons, because some of those facilities weren't open, and equally, you know, it meant that we could deliver a better service and have better cover in place. So just to be alert to that. I take on board the comments there in terms of it being our shop front, and maybe we do need to be just that little bit clearer in our communications. You will appreciate in respect of the Enniskillen Connect Centre that the 2020 immediately before the lockdown period, so we have been hampered over the last year as to what we can do, and certainly we wouldn't have it wouldn't have been appropriate to have the type of activity inviting people in, but it is certainly something that we can look to develop. And yes, I mean, our staff are very good, we get very good feedback, so there's no reason why we can't extend a further welcome to our public and try and get them more engaged, as that being their one-stop shop for engagement with the council. So thank you for those comments.
Councillor Green, just before we leave this, have you a comment?
Yeah, thanks for letting me in, Chair. And thanks for the report, Celine. Just on letting people in and that, in small villages and that, the only doors that the council has in small villages, for instance, Brookborough, is the public toilet doors. And in Brookborough, the 3 of them still locked. 13, 14, 15 months after COVID started. I just wondered maybe at a future date it could be a get a report, maybe it's their own committee of when they're actually going on.
I think it is Environmental Services to bring that issue up, but certainly it can be noted here. Okay. Councillor Green, you heard that it's noted here, but Environmental Services.
Yeah, no, it was just when we were talking about letting people in, you know, to our buildings.
Okay.
But
No
Chair,
problem.
I think maybe we could clarify the public convenience is open actually in Brookborough. They're on a revised opening model, as with a number of other facilities due to the COVID risks in terms of social distancing, but they are operational.
Okay.
Just to clarify that nobody can get in. There's some kind of a key on it that no ordinary person can get in, or no person can get in. If you try to go in, you have to have a special key or something. And how you get that special key, I don't know. So,
Councillor Green, I'm trying to get through this meeting. If you could make that inquiry direct with the appropriate director, please.
Chair.
Councillor Robinson.
Chair, to do the toilet in Brookborough, I used them toilets a couple of weeks ago. There's one door open.
Okay, listen, I'm not going to carry on with toilets here because we've a lot more to deal with here. Perhaps if you speak with the directors on any problems, it'll be brought back to Environmental Services. Thank you. Okay, we proposed and seconded that we've carried out the recommendations here in the director's report. All agreement, no dissenters. Okay, passed. We're on now to item 8.2 to consider report on staff matters, paper L. I think Thelma is taking us through here.
I can take you through, Chair. I know Thelma's on the call, but I can provide a summary.
Okay, Celine, if you could provide a summary,
3 items for information in this report. An update on the status of where staff are and I suppose the COVID situation. Sickness absence statistics for the year, which again are relevant. Just to note that they exclude COVID-related absence, which is the agreed position for reporting on this information, partly because of that. that, and maybe partly because of a range of other factors, less other sickness, etc., this is the lowest statistics for absence that we have reported for quite some number of years. Notwithstanding that, some definitely concerns and issues around the most significant contributor there to sickness absence, which is stress, depression, mental health and fatigue syndrome. And then some further information for members on the work that the Council is doing to manage that. Finally, then an update. Members will be aware that the Council is part of the regional and national negotiating forums for local government officers' pay. That has been going on at national level. There was a trade union claim for 10%, an employer offer of 1.5%, which I believe has been rejected, and then there is ongoing exploratory discussion on different elements of the claim, and that's really the update, and we provide any further information, but we are subscribed to whatever's agreed at those national levels, which has its pluses and minuses in different ways. So all of those items are for noting.
Okay, Councillor Robinson.
Post a note.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Second the noting, Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Curry.
Yes, Cormac, it's just around the second part there about the pay deal. I attended that meeting myself and Councillor Armstrong, who was the chair. I'm not sure how I qualified for it, but I was at it last year as the chair. But I'd just like to express concern at the tone of the meeting. I think that, and that's two that I've been at now, and I have found the presentation from the guy whose name escapes me, and I haven't written it down, really not open to much discussion. And we actually had raised a number of points that aren't addressed there, don't appear to have been addressed. And I think I would just like to make the proposal that I feel, and maybe Councillor Armstrong might like to comment on this too, but I feel that there's really a dismissive attitude, I think, to the unions, to trade unions, from the guy who takes that meeting. Albeit I will admit that he did point out that the trade union claim came in extremely late in the day, and that's something that I'd hope that maybe trade unions can address in the future. But I just find the tone of the meetings really unsavoury, I have to say, and I'd like that expressed actually to Nilga.
Okay, Councillor Feely.
Maybe Councillor Armstrong wants to comment first. I was coming on a different thing after.
Well, I'm hoping we can clear this up fairly quickly because we've quite a lot still to go through.
It's just that like stress, depression, mental health and fatigue, 47% of sickness absent. It's alarming that it's very high, so I just wanted to make that comment there. But I should, Councillor Armstrong may want to comment after Siobhan there. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Curry. Yes, I mean, I do agree. I think maybe it's something that needs reviewed. I do take the comments, and I do tend to agree. I haven't my notes of that meeting just to hand, but I certainly would support what she's saying, and thank you for making those.
Okay, so we've had it proposed and seconded that we note, and we've also the additional, which it should be noted within our minutes about the concern. All agreed? No dissent? Okay, passed. Now, members, we're on to item 9, correspondence. 9.1, to consider correspondence dated the 18th of May 2021 from the Department of Justice regarding council motion on the issue of violence against women and girls. You have had the copy. Councillor Deacon.
Thank you, Chair, and I welcome this correspondence from Mrs. Naomi Long, Minister for Justice, and certainly in the wake of the violent death of Sarah Everard, which shocked and horrified the nation. Mrs. Long was very vocal and visible in her condemnation of violence against women and girls, and her unequivocal message that this must stop, and it must stop now. So I welcome her letter, and I welcome also the initiative which was agreed by the executive in March 21 to develop a cross-departmental strategy tackling the root causes of violence against women and girls, and to identify the root causes and seek to address them, and recognizing the societal and cultural changes which are required in order to address this completely unacceptable behaviour. Women and girls are suffering immeasurable stress in so many areas of our society, and they deserve protection. So I welcome targeted education and relationship awareness. I also welcome initiatives by the Department of Justice in terms of multimedia advertising campaigns and those of PSNI and Crime Stoppers. And I certainly feel that there is a greater awareness of this problem, but much to be done. So I welcome this correspondence and propose to note, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deehan. Councillor Erskine.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank Josephine Deehan, Councillor Deehan there for raising those points. And I think it's important to put on record that on the PCSP here locally, this has been an issue that has been raised many times, and I want to thank the local groups and how they are responding to the challenges in this particular area. And I know for the PCSP members there is training and things coming up as well, which will be vital as well. So happy to second the pieces of correspondence, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Erskine. You've heard it proposed and seconded. Councillor O'Coffey, you're looking to come in?
Yeah, I think it's important just first of all reflect on the issue of violence against women and girls. This is a pervasive problem, and it is. I was recently I saw the results of a survey conducted on workers in hospitality sector environments. 95% of young females who are working in hospitality had experienced either sexual harassment or sexual abuse in the workplace, and I think it's reflective of attitudes wider in society, and I think it is something we want to we certainly want to see stamped out. There's one comment in this around CCTV, and I note that we referenced it yesterday in terms of you know, why are we paying for that? And I do see that the department is stating that they are not going to fund CCTV at all in this way. So obviously this is a concern. I guess that would also mean and compound the problems faced by women and girls who are facing abuse and violence even in outside of the home, let alone what they're getting elsewhere. So overall, hopefully we can do something about that. Thanks.
Okay, we've had it proposed and seconded. We note the response. Everybody in agreement? No countries? Okay, thank you. We're now on to 9.2 to consider correspondence dated 18th of May 2021 from NILGA regarding Council Policy Consultation, Vision and Development of Local Government Phase 1, 2021 to 2023.
Yeah, Chair, just to draw members' attention to the last page of the appendix, page 8, which sets out what NILGA's requirements are from the Council. So it's really to confirm the suitability or otherwise of the vision statement, the 5 main themes and the 11 actions identified. And if there's anything further that the Council would wish to add, Chair. I mean, I think it is certainly consistent with discussions we've had previously, and if members were content, we could just respond to NILGA on that basis and confirm the Council was satisfied and would welcome ongoing engagement as the work is further developed, Chair.
Anybody wish to speak in this matter or to propose that we agree with it what has been outlined by the Chief Executive? Councillor Coyle.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll propose that we do send the information to NILGA and partake in this consultation. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you. Councillor Swift.
Second that.
Okay, thank you very much. We've heard it proposed and seconded. All agreed? No dissent? Okay, thank you. We now move on to 9.3 to consider correspondence dated 24th of May 2021 from the Western Health and Social Care Trust regarding underfunding in the Western Health and Social Care Trust. It's 9.3.
Yep. Chair, this letter was in response to the Council's correspondence on two specific matters. One was regarding the local involvement group online engagements, particularly since the onset of the pandemic, and also to highlight to the Trust the Council's continued discontent at the failure of the Trust to invest the £8 million, which was referenced in 2016 to rebalance the adult learning disability budget.
Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm happy to propose to note this, except I just would have to say that I don't think it in any way addressed the question which we'd raised about the failure to make up the gap of the £8 million every year that is not going to support carers and those in this situation and those affected by learning disabilities and so on. We are the information we've received is now the gap is narrowed. It's no longer 8 million, it's around 3 million, but still that means £3 million that are not going to some of the most vulnerable people in our council area and this western area in general. So it's clearly we need to keep the pressure on, but happy to note. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dean.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second the noting of the correspondence and, services for learning individuals with learning disability. I think is something that this council has been concerned with for some time, and it goes without saying, or it should go without saying, that resources should be equitably distributed across the Trust for all user groups. And this is an historic wrong which has still not been righted in terms of provision for those with learning disability. So I think we will keep a watching brief in this area, Chair. So happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Dehan. So you've heard it proposed and seconded. We note the response. All in agreement? No dissent? Passed. The next item on the agenda is to consider 9.4 to consider correspondence dated 24th of May 2021 from the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs regarding climate change.
Okay, Chair, there's really two aspects to this response from the Minister. First, sets out the departmental financial resources and the efforts that the department have made regarding climate change and the climate action plan. And then the latter part of the letter deals specifically with the establishment of an independent environmental protection agency, about which the Council had sought an update in our previous correspondence. I suppose the Minister notes that the New Decade New Approach agreement does not specify a time frame for the establishment of such an agency, and neither the Minister nor the Executive have taken a decision not to establish such an agency. But it cannot happen overnight and will take time.
Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This is a really outrageous response, it has to be said. There's no commitment to the establishment of an independent EPA. The first page consists of a massive greenwashing where the Minister complains that we haven't, as a council, recognised the good work that he has done, which is absolutely insignificant and making very little change. I note it also claims that there's no way in the world that Northern Ireland will attain carbon neutrality in our economy by 2050, let alone 2045, when everyone knows that that is the goal, not just for the UK, but around the world. The only thing I would say is that I actually share his complaints about the climate change bill, but from the opposite side, I think that the climate change bill is hopelessly inadequate. It does not mandate intervention by the state, which is going to be necessary to achieve anything, and it will result in mass loss of jobs in agriculture and across much of our economy because it's not based on the principles of a just transition. And I certainly would support those trade unions that already came out against this climate change bill as inadequate. So I just think this is a disgraceful commentary, and this is the new leader of the DUP. So thanks, Chair.
I think, yeah, I mean, you mightn't like the contents, but you're quite happy to note.
I'll note it, Chair, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McAleer?
Yeah, I would share Councillor O'Coffey's concern. It's another horrible letter from the Minister. He is trying to pat himself on the back. He's maintaining and banging his head against the wall with this greenwashing. This idea of green growth and a green growth strategy was completely incompatible with any sort of green recovery. He's got his head in the sand, and he's happy to blame everybody else that he hasn't. He's saying that he hasn't ruled out an independent EPA, but yet he has done nothing whatsoever to bring forward the introduction of one. You know, it's fantasy stuff really from him, and it's not good enough. And as Councillor O'Coffey rightly says, this is the new leader of the DUP. It's not good enough, Chair, but I will second the noting of the letter.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McAleer. Councillor Curry?
Yes, Gormagad Caherly. Yeah, I'm just disappointed, and that's just what I want to say. I think the Minister, particularly on page 2 of the letter, is blatantly lobbying for himself, and is aggressive towards the private members bill. I don't think it's perfect either, but I just think that this is what this Minister is doing, smoke and mirrors. He starts that paragraph by stating facts around agri-food sector, 70% of our land use, 113,000 jobs locally, and then confuses the issue with his own opinion, I believe, and it's not based on any fact whatsoever. Meanwhile, the private members bill only was brought forward due to total inaction by this Minister to do anything. So I take, him saying things don't happen overnight. Nothing at all was happening until his hand was forced, and just disappointed again. It's just pathetic, pitting one thing against the other when it's his department. He's shown time and time again that he is a climate denier, and he highlights it in every letter he writes. Gormagad.
Okay, thank you. We've heard it proposed and seconded that we note the response. All in agreement? Okay, thank you. The next issue then is 9.5, to consider correspondence dated the 26th of May 2021 from the Local Government Boundaries Commissioner for Northern Ireland regarding local government boundaries review.
Yep, Chair. Yes, thank you, Chair. Chair, really, this is just a request from the Commissioner that we make available a suitable space within our council facilities for online access to the proposals when they are available, obviously reflective of the prevailing public health guidance at the time. And you'll have seen from the letter that it's the intention that public hearings on the provisional proposals for each council area will be convened towards the end of September. So it's really just to confirm, Chair, we would be in a position through our venues to be able to accommodate the requests of the Commissioner, subject to members being supportive.
Okay, I'm going to bring Celine in next, please.
Chair, members, just to confirm that we had planned that would be through our Connect centres, so it does build on members' earlier suggestion around using it for consultation exercises, and that would mean actually provide access to the PC, that members of the public could come in and use the PC there to look at the information and download. So that was our plan. So I think it's relevant to the earlier comments made. Thank you.
Thank you, Celine. Councillor McAleer?
Yeah, I'm happy enough to propose to note and follow the recommendations as stated by the officers and in the report, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Diana Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second, and thank you, Celine, for that, for informing us of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Heard it proposed, seconded that we note and assist in whatever way possible there. All agreed? Okay. We move on now to item 9.6, to consider correspondence dated the 28th of May 2021 from the Electoral Office for Northern Ireland regarding static canvassers.
Yeah.
Again, Alison.
Thanks, Chair. This really follows on from a previous correspondence that the Council has issued, and indeed meetings with the Chief Electoral Officer. But in summary, it's proposed that the Electoral Officer will be placing a team of 2 canvassers in our council area at a number of venues during the period July to October. The suggested venues are detailed in the appendix, so that would be the Lakeland Forum, the Leisure Complex and Hospital Road Community Centre in Omagh. We would work with the available space, but in principle those facilities should be okay, and they set out their requirements. But then in the latter part of the letter, Chair, it's also proposed that they will be seeking to place kiosks at each council for members of the public who wish to register online but may not be able to access a smartphone, and it's intended that they will be delivered and installed from early July and will be in place until the 1st of December, and they would promote that using posters and other media. So really, Chair, again, we are in a position to accommodate these requests, and I suppose it does conclude at least some of the queries that the Council had raised previously with the Electoral Office.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose it is a step in the right direction here. As far as I'm concerned, this is something that we have lobbied, and I personally have lobbied for quite some time. In fact, since the electoral office in Omagh was closed, with the loss of the staff and the access for public to be able to avail of the services there. While this in some ways goes towards helping people, Chair, I would be very disheartened that this is only up until December. I think that we need this on a permanent basis so that people at any time can come in and use this system to register online, and if help was required, that there would be somebody from the council there to do that. So I suppose in one way it is a good trial exercise, Chair, to be able to establish this. But I think that we should be then writing back to sort of say that this needs to be instated or installed on a permanent basis here. And the final point, I'd just like some maybe clarification. While we have the 2 venues there for the static canvassers and our facilitation of that, I'm unclear as to the sites that would be available for these kiosk idea. And while I would imagine that Enniskillen and Omagh will be serviced, I'd just like to voice the opinion that we elected to a rural subcommittee, a rural affairs subcommittee, that maybe there should be some thought given to the likes of some of our bigger towns, that some facility of a kiosk nature, when we're really here talking about a laptop, could be provided in the likes of, I can only really talk for, I suppose, the 5 bigger towns that we have identified in the event strategy as being the next towns down from Enniskillen and Omagh. So maybe I could get some comment on that, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, but in the meantime,
but
are you
I'm happy to propose. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll take it. Councillor Feely.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, yeah, happy to second the close. I just want to make 1 or 2 comments as well, but second, and thank Thomas for all the work he's put into this. He's been pushing this from the start, and I'm glad we have getting some start here, but not fully satisfied either. I just was looking at we are not planning to issue ID cards at this time, and I'm glad that they're going to look at that position later on. But I think they should be doing that from the start as well. And they said they don't want to turn away people from voting, but now, as we all know ourselves, it's nearly like jumping through hoops to get to vote. Some elections, you're getting on the register and getting your ID and stuff. Like, pity it wasn't like some states in America where you just automatically get voting. Pity they wouldn't just make it a wee bit handy first, but that's where we are. And Thomas has hit on it there about the 3 towns there, or the 3 places in the 2 towns. I would even suggest even coming out to some of the smaller villages like my own, Garrison, Bellicue or Derrygolly, for once or twice and try and get people to go to them as well. You know, just not concentrate on all the bigger towns as such, but just wanted to make them two comments there. But happy to second and glad that we are trying to get something done after the place closed in Oma, which was handy for us. Let's go to Belfast, you know. So just happy enough with that. Just wanted to make them 2 points. Thank you, Howard.
Okay, I'm going to bring Councillor McCann in, but just before I do so, I know that we're coming up on the 3-hour mark, and I do believe with the cooperation from members, we can get through the remaining part of the agenda. So can I have a proposal and a second?
I'll propose, Howard.
Okay, Councillor Feely, and seconder.
I'll second it if you need a seconder, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, all agreed. Okay, we're now on to Councillor McCann.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and best wishes, Howard, for your year ahead. The points I think has been made already by Councillor O'Reilly and Councillor Feely. Access to the democratic processes is very important, and with the closure of our main electoral offices in Oma and the relocation of them to Belfast has put rural people at a real disadvantage, you know. So while Thomas is right, he says this is a step in the right direction, you know. There could be more done here. I'm thinking about the people in Fintona, maybe the Ecclesfield Centre could be a prime location. Others will have other locations in their mind as well, you know. So I'd be interested in the rationale why they can't move out of Oma and Enniskillen. And also, again, that's a good point being made by Councillor O'Reilly in relation to why just this short period of time. We all know as councillors, you know, in the work that goes into election time in relation to registration and gathering forms and stuff, you know, the huge workload that they're facing at election time. So with a permanent base in these areas, you know, it might actually work in their favour as well. So just supportive of the previous comments, Howard.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Curry.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just also on the ID cards, I think we should be requesting that they could at least come for one day to each of the centres. I've recently been dealing with an issue for a gentleman whose bank requires photographic ID for an account he's been using since he was 4 years old, uses it as his current account. And he's been waiting, it's just came through 8 weeks for a photographic ID card. I'm also thinking about students, and the timing during the summer wouldn't be very good, but for maybe coming into September time. Other forms of photographic ID are very expensive. Driving licenses people may not have, and then passports, as I've said, they're expensive, whereas the photographic ID is free, or at least just the cost of a photo. And I think it's important to be able to provide that for at least one of the days. On the centres themselves, they actually mention in the letter that their preference is really for the wards, actually, that they mention, not even the towns, the wards within them. So the one for Enniskillen is Petora ward. It says it's their intention to see other people, but we have no detail on how many days they're going to be here between those months. So I would be concerned on that. I think a good thing to point out, though, is that the documentation that they may require now as evidence does not have to be the original document. It can be a copy, and you can send that if you're sending your form by hard copy, or you can scan it and send it by email if you're doing it that way. And I think that's an important thing to point out. Gurmagad, Chair. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted there. Thanks, Councillor Curry. It's just I want to make sure that we get through the correspondence here. So I thank you for your remarks, and perhaps another meeting could be arranged with the electoral office to discuss all those issues that have been raised by councillors. Councillor McAleer.
Thanks, Chair. And again, mindful of time, I'll be fairly brief, but it's just to highlight again the complete short-sightedness of the electoral office and Virginia McVeigh in closing local electoral offices and getting rid of staff here, and then coming back a couple of years later, cap in hand, looking more or less to higher office facilities office again. I think it again shows how short-sighted that decision was, and it's one that still irks the people and the councillors of this area. So just really to put that on record again tonight, Chair. Thank you.
I think we'd all agree with that one. So you've heard it proposed and seconded. We note the correspondence, and perhaps we could look at meeting again with the electoral office about all those concerns. Could I have a proposal for that?
Yes, I'll propose the chair.
And a seconder?
And me, I'll
Okay.
second this, really.
Okay, I take it everybody's in agreement. Okay, we'll move on then to 9.8. Sorry, 9.7. To consider correspondence from the Department for the Economy regarding energy strategy events. You have had the circular sent out with the different dates and times. If anybody is interested, could they let Democratic Services know by close of play on Friday? Rather than talk about this, but you all have the correspondence. If you are interested, please inform Democratic Services by Friday. Councillor Earl Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. If it just needs a proposed to note, I'll propose to note at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson.
Seconded.
Okay, thank you. All happy? We go with that. Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is 9.8, to consider various items of correspondence from the Department of Health. 981 is correspondence dated the 2nd of June 2021 regarding underfunding in the Western Health and Social Care Trust. And 9.82 is correspondence dated the 2nd of June 2021 regarding recruitment and retention of healthcare staff. Listen.
Yes, Chair, just as you've said, and I'm mindful, these were the substantive matters were referenced earlier in the meeting. So the first letter from the Minister relates to the Council's motion again, and this was regarding the underfunding of vulnerable adults, but in particular those with learning disabilities, and the deficit in that funding and our concerns in that regard. And item 982, Chair, is in relation to the general recruitment and retention matters, and the Minister sets out the workforce strategy that's in place, references Dr. Kilgallen's letter to the Council, and also refers to a couple of the retention schemes that are currently in place across the Trust.
Okay, Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As the Chief Executive has stated, the first item of this is largely a repeat of the earlier one, as I'd said earlier, but there is something in the second item which I would like to propose that we act upon. It's not often you get a minister actually suggesting that the Council pursue something, and I would encourage the Council to consider positively and creatively the specific challenge of sourcing accommodation for international recruits in close proximity to the Southwest Acute Hospital. So I'd like to see, if possible, that I'd like to propose that the Council come forward with whatever some sort of report or we can around what we can do to actually support accommodation close to SWA to attract international students who may need support in that manner. I also note the final down to the bottom of the same response from the Minister, the comments on the general practice nurses, which I think are well made. I think it is an important addition. However, I think the experience, we're certainly hearing that from many practices, unfortunately, but not all, thankfully, is that this is not necessarily providing the sort of access that residents and patients are requiring. So obviously there's a lot of work to be done. So I'm happy to note that as a document, but I would just like propose that we have some form of response from the non-executive officers. Thank you, Chair, or the executive.
Okay, Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I have already made my comments in relation to provision for those with learning disability, so I won't rehearse those comments. I want to make a comment in relation to staff recruitment, and in particular primary care staff, general practitioners and associated primary care staff. It is recognised in the letter that primary care is the foundation of transforming the delivery of health and social care services. And as we know, general practice is really under threat in our district council area, with great difficulties in recruiting and retaining general practitioners to the area. The GP federations were founded to support primary care, and one initiative was the training of specialist general practice nurses. At present, there is a situation where funding for training of these nurses is being threatened. I would like to propose that we would write to the Minister highlighting the importance of continuing to support primary care through the GP federations, and in particular to make every effort to secure future funding for the training of specialist general practice nurses. So I would put that forward as a proposal. If Councillor O'Coffey would incorporate that into his proposal, then I would be happy to second it, and to second the noting of this correspondence, Chair.
Councillor O'Coffey,
I'm certainly happy to do that. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. We now move on to the next councillor is Anne-Marie Fitzgerald. Councillor Anne-Marie Fitzgerald, is it? Okay, I can't get any.
Anne-Marie could be having IT problems. I'm heard. I think she's having a bit of problems.
Okay.
Hopefully to make it in.
Okay, members, we'll have to carry on, unfortunately. You've heard the proposal and seconder there, Professor Dean. Are we all in agreement? No dissent? Okay, that's passed. We now have any other on
Yes.
9.9?
Yes, Chair, we just have one item which has been uploaded, and this is a request for a letter of support for charging infrastructure investment. So members will see that we've been asked, BSB are considering making a bid to the UK's government's Levelling Up Fund, the deadline for which is the 17th of June. And they summarised in the request for a letter of support is that if their funding is successful, they would anticipate replacing up to 100 pre-existing pilot grade fast chargers in the district, upgrading 20 fast chargers to rapid chargers, 7 existing rapid chargers with modern equipment, and building 5 hubs. So it obviously would be funding dependent, Chair, but it may be something that the council would be willing. There would be no financial commitment in us giving a letter of support of this kind, just welcoming the potential of the project.
Okay, Councillor Coyle.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose that we do, because the charging point in Balik hasn't been working for a number of years. So, and I think it's out of date.
I've heard that before.
So it's out of date. The machinery that's there, it is out. It's gone past. So hopefully that this may resurrect that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Curry.
Yeah, I'm happy to second. I noted, I think, if I'm not mistaken, last week there was new infrastructure or upgrades to infrastructure across the north by the Minister, and none of them were in our district. So I think this would be good to support writing this letter of support to get it elsewhere.
Thank you, Councillor Feely.
Yeah, just I'm not waste time. I just have this one. I'm glad that the one in Balik was mentioned for. There's none in Garrison, and then he would have to use the one in Balik. So the sooner it's fixed, the better. But just happy to support.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gannon.
Very brief, Chair, just to say we should be doing everything we can to encourage electric vehicles, and this would be great. So it would be great to be supporting it, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, we've proposed and seconded, and it seems to be agreed. Any dissenters? Okay, that's passed. Members, there are, before I go into any other urgent and relevant business, because I have a couple of items I would like to go into committee first and deal with the confidential matters. So can I get a proposer and seconder to go to committee?
Proposed.
Proposed by Councillor Baird and seconded by
Second.
Seconded.
Councillor Robinson, and who's seconder? Sorry, Councillor Thompson. All agreed. Okay, we can put the recording back on. Okay, the recording's back on, members. Could I ask the Chief Executive to summarise what was dealt with in confidential?
Thank you, Chair. While in confidential business, the Council considered the committee considered the matters arising of the confidential meeting of the Policy and Resources Committee meeting held on the 12th of May, and there were no matters arising, and also considered the report on confidential staff matters and agreed with the recommendations in the report.
Okay, proposer and seconder to agree to that.
Proposed, Chair.
Councillor Anne-Marie Fitzgerald, are you in now?
Yeah, second that.
Proposed and seconded by Councillor Warrington. Members, we have very little time left, but I tried to get in items of any urgent and relevant business. There are two items which I feel we're not going to get in within the next 5 minutes. But Councillor McElduff, can I?
Yeah, this is a procedural matter, and thank you, Howard, for taking this. I'm going to be brief. So
very brief, please, because the other one's important as well.
Of course. I want to propose, Chair, that the Council undertake a full economic appraisal for a 4G pitch in the Omagh area, looking at cost, location, dimension options, etc., with provision being suitable to meet the needs of all sporting codes, but a particular deficit has been identified, pitch dimensions suiting GAA and rugby. And the resolution was already passed by the Council in 2019, so it really is a procedural matter to move to the next stage. So I'm making that proposal, and thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Chris McCaffrey.
Yes, Cormac Caherly, just to second that. Thank you. Okay,
you've heard the proposal and seconded. All in agreement, or is there any dissent? Councillor Anne-Marie Fitzgerald, you have your hand up.
Sorry, I was coming in to second that proposal. But
okay, that's fine. That's passed. The second issue, and it's very, very briefly, it was a request from two councillors to get an update on the Brala meeting this morning. I'll have to ask the Chief Executive to do that in a couple of minutes to keep within the guidelines. So, Chief Executive.
Okay, Chair, thank you, and I will certainly be brief. So, Chair, in attendance at the meeting today, from the Council perspective, Councillor Coyle attended, myself and the Director of Community Health and Leisure, and from CCMS, their Chief Executive and two of their senior officers. The CCMS representatives were disappointed that the majority of councillors had chosen not to attend, understood the reason for members' non-attendance, and advised that they will consider the request again for a meeting between the elected members and to include the elected members, the Parents' Council and CCMS representatives. We did also ask, Chair, in relation to what had been described at last week's meeting regarding the stripping of assets from the school. That was strongly contended by the CCMS representatives. They said that in terms of nothing which relates to the education of the children has been removed. There may have been the removal of a couple of lockers, but certainly no asset stripping or equipment is being removed at this time from the school premises. There was discussion and concern expressed, Chair, regarding the Council's previously stated position about the lack of meaningful engagement and consultation, that the failure to meet to discuss the actual decision and the inability for that decision to be reviewed. The concern was also expressed in relation to an apparent absence around a cross-border model for consideration, And we also advised of the council decision in relation to the council acting as honest broker in terms of a much wider stakeholder engagement to which CCMS would also be invited. The point was made by Councillor Coyle of the disrespect that has been accorded to the council and councillors as well as to the local community. CCMS did not share that view, but certainly they would reflect upon the request again and would respond to us in due course, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. Councillor Swift, quite briefly, if you can.
Thank you,
please.
Alison. And I must reiterate the continuing concerns regarding the peace project and the details of which have obviously been circumvented again here, and they should have been addressed long ago. The bottom line from the Parents' Council correspondence has been to request clarification from Jerry Campbell after he provided assurances in writing that the Brala Parents' Council would receive explanation, which would have enabled redress of the matter. I do not accept any further obfuscation on this matter by Jerry Campbell, and I'm actually quite outraged on that. It's a pity that today he didn't actually provide and nail down a date and time to meet with the Parents' Council. It wasn't too much to ask, especially after the length of time and length of correspondence that we've had with the same. And he shouldn't have been surprised at the boycott today, and it was an honourable position to take. And I appreciate that the pressure was placed to have the time and address or time and date nailed down to meet with the Parents' Council. That still stands. There are a lot of mistruths in the detail of some of that, I must add.
Okay, thank you, Bernice. Anthony, you have
I'd be
30
very
seconds.
just glad I didn't go in today to waste my time to listen to complete, and I don't like saying this, complete lies. A few items was took out of it. How did it take 2 or 3 big van loads to come for a few items? So I'm just totally disappointed. I'm glad that I wasn't able to listen to them lies.
Okay, thank you. John Coyle, I'm sorry, I don't have any time left for any more comment. I'm going to have to call the meeting to a close. I thank everybody for their cooperation, but it was quite a full meeting. I tried to get those AOB in, so thank you for your cooperation.
Well done, Chair.
Good man, well done. Well done.
Fermanagh, well done. Thank you.
Thanks.